All right, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Good morning and thank you for being here. It's Benzie County Board of Commissioners. Today is May 28, 2024. We're in the Frank Walderhouse Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Becky,
Here.
Cunningham.
Here.
Janot,
Here.
Markey,
Here.
Nye,
Here.
Roloff.
Here.
Sauer,
Here.
all present.
Please stand for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Benzie County. I would ask for your guidance with the decisions we'll make today. Please keep all of our public safety personnel safe and free from harm. I ask this in the name of your Son. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Approval of the agenda. The 9:40 has canceled, so I'd look for a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So moved. Approval of and correction of the minutes, regular meeting and closed session.
I move that we approve and the correction of the minutes of the closed session and session.
9 seconds.
Motion and support to approve the May 14th regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So moved. Brings us to the May 14th closed session.
I move to approve the closed minute session minutes as presented.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Brings us to our first public input. Does anybody like to share under public input? Closed public input. Moved on to elected officials, department heads. Sheriff Rosa.
Real quick, had a really busy weekend up the hill. Everybody's safe though. We had to talk to you about our new canine. You've seen him, Omar.
Mhm.
He had a good, successful track this weekend. Suspected intoxicated driver crashed, took off into the woods. And guess who was the first officer on scene? Deputy Dumont and Omar.
Oh, wow.
Ah,
Perfect.
They apprehended him and everything went well. So that's good. Wanted to give you that update.
Perfect. Thank you,
Neat
Sheriff.
things that are working,
We like good news.
happening in our office. Good news.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions?
How's the 24-hour road patrol going?
Going very well.
See them all over, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
over yet?
I try to slow down now.
The second day of that, I had a,
Cruise control.
had a citizen approach me the second day of it, Monday, so it started on Sunday, the 12th. And he said, did I see a car at 5 o'clock this morning?
Mm,
Yep, sure did.
Good.
So, a lot of good reviews, a lot of good things happening there. It's working out well so far.
Thank you.
Thank you,
thank you,
Sheriff.
Sheriff.
Yep.
Any, oh, I'm sorry, Doug?
Good morning, Doug Duran with Benzie Senior Resources. Y'all received my packet. Any questions?
Questions for Doug?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Any other department heads, elected officials? We'll move on to finance.
Good morning, Kelly Long, County Treasurer. I'm here to present the finance bills for you today from May 10th to May 23rd of 2024 in the amount of $308,365.76.
Any questions?
I'll make the motion to pay the bills in the amount of 308, 365, 76.
And support.
So you, Karen?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Yes,
Not,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye. Yes. Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Without.
Yes.
Carried.
Quick
Any
update.
updates?
Yep, quick update in the treasurer's office this week. We are going to be closed from 10 to 2 on Thursday. We're having a treasurer's meeting. Yay. I got all the township and village treasurers to come except for one township. So we're going to do a little meeting / training session. So I've got a little note up front right now so people know that we're going to be closed from those hours on Thursday. So
Are you
you
gonna
can
be
do
in
that.
this room?
We're gonna be in the 206 room. I think in here we've got a retirement party going on, but either way, we'll make it work. State Savings Bank is sponsoring us, so that's gonna be awesome. And of course, June's coming around, so tax season's getting ready to start, so we're getting geared up for that.
Yep.
And otherwise, yeah, it's yay, pretty exciting. Thank
Kelly,
you.
Kelly, is this typical? Have you done this?
This
your
is
first?
my first one. In the 18 years I've been here, I don't think we've had one, but I believe they've had them in the past prior to that. So everybody's very excited. It's going to be a lot of, I'm hoping, networking type thing. So when people have questions, they can contact each other instead of contacting me all the time. I get a lot of phone calls, which is fine. But yeah, want to get people updated on things. We got some new treasurers coming on board, some old treasurers getting ready to leave. And so, yeah, this is,
So
everybody's super excited, super. So I'm hoping we can,
So
do
it's
this annually.
communication is the agenda basically and connecting.
yeah,
Okay.
some different things out there that we're going to talk about. I got a small agenda on a lot
Okay.
of different things and yeah.
Thank
Yep. You're welcome.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. We'll move on to new business. Item A. Consider authorizing easement with Zetterberg Trust for existing property. Access points near Point Betsy.
Sure. So for about a year now, our office has been in communication with the Zetterberg family. They have a trust for their property down towards Point Betsy. When the property was turned over from the Bureau of Land Management, an easement was not memorialized. Though if you look at the transfer documents from the Bureau of Land Management to us, it notes these existing roadways to the property. So the Zetterbergs own property on the one side of the Point Betsy Road, we're on the other side, and then various other property owners around it. What they're basically looking to do is memorialize what's in existence today. I did speak with the road commission, and I also spoke with the Friends of Point Betsy, and everyone agrees that what's being memorialized is exactly what's in place and would continue to be in place. And so this would be the driveways to their properties, the Zetterberg properties that are down there. It would be 3 driveways. They would be required to maintain their driveways, you know, at their cost. There is opportunity for a split in the future, so that would also be memorialized as part of this easement, one additional driveway, because their family is growing, obviously. So everyone has given the nod to this, that it's really what's been in place for over 100 years. And so we're just really looking to memorialize the relationship, because right now it's based on a handshake from a long, long time ago.
Does this come at any cost to the county?
No.
And I can appreciate that, Katie, that you are formalizing this, because in the past, we've had handshake agreements. I think of the airport and the interlocal agreement with Frankfurt. By formalizing and having them in writing, I commend you on that and having that done.
Yeah, any map that you look
Mhm.
at through history, it shows these driveways.
Okay.
So everyone just, you know, always assume it was all up to snuff, but it was never formally memorialized.
I just, curious how wide of easement you're given on each driveway. Are they 10, 12 feet? I couldn't find it. I guess. I missed it.
Hold on.
I-
So it'd be 20 feet.
20-foot right of ways,
Mhm.
sufficient. I was just curious. Thank you. Well, I'll try to read the motion if I can end it again. Board of Commissioners authorizes an access easement with the Zetterberg family trust for access to the property off Point Betsy Road, and that the chair be authorized to sign such easement documents with the Zetterberg family to be responsible for recording of such documents of the Register of Deeds.
Mark, you'll support it.
All right, Evan, but thank you. Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Worzakki.
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item B, consider approving the MOU with MDOC for probation and parole.
We've had an MOU in place for quite some time with the Department of Corrections, specifically to the printer copier scanner device that is down there, because we provide that for the parole and probation office as required under statute. With the remodel that took place down there, that's, you know, in its final punch list, we have upgraded the copy machine down there, which involves a new set of terms with the agency we lease them from. And so because it's a new device, we need to update that MOU with the DOC. So just to clarify, this is specific to the machine. This isn't Benzie County getting into a convoluted state contract like with other state offices. This is just for that device specifically. Because we provide that device, and because they have sensitive information, there's certain requirements of that device.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Commissioners authorizes a 5-year memorandum of understanding between the Michigan Department of Corrections and Benzie County for a printer copy scan fax machine in parole and probation, and authorizes the chair to sign.
Second.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Markey,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Worzakki,
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Janai.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item C, consider authorizing a letter of intent regarding the material management planning process with Grand Traverse County and Leelanau County.
For quite some time, Jesse has spoke to this group about the state someday would call a plan update. They have done that, as you know, and so for the past several months, we've been in conversations with the neighboring counties to talk about this opportunity of regionalization of the materials management plan. After various conversations, we believe as staff that it makes sense to regionalize with Leelanau and Grand Traverse. We're very similar in our county operations when it comes to materials management. We did consider Manistee and Wexford County, but they're very different in the grand scheme of it all. They don't use the same waste haulers, and they have different opportunities for recycling and such. And so it made most sense to regionalize with those who are most like us in their operations. The state is incentivizing regionalization. So if you do regionalize, you do get an additional $10,000 per county to regionalize. And so that is another incentive to regionalize is it will be end up being an additional $30,000 to write this plan. We are required to adopt a notice of intent to regionalize by the first part of July that we submit to the state of Michigan. Once that's done, we'll bring back forward an LOU, a letter of understanding between the three counties to really define the roles of what that means in that relationship. And then from there, we'll have a 3-year timeline to actually write the plan. So while it's going to be one large regional plan, if that's what you choose to do today, you do maintain your individual county approving authority. So you also maintain your own responsibility to implement the plan. So while we would all three be operating off the same plan, we could have nuances in how we implement it and manage the plan from there. Grand Traverse County has offered to kind of be the head on this, so kind of lead the charge with Leelanau and Benzie, assisting as needed. They really do have the additional manpower versus what Benzie County has. We would ultimately decide to contract with a third-party vendor to actually write the plan because while we all are learning about the new laws regarding recycling and waste management, we're not the subject matter experts. And so to hire a third-party vendor to actually write that plan is where we're going. And the funding we receive from the state would assist in that. So there wouldn't be out of pocket for Benzie County necessarily. It would be the pass-through funds coming from the state of Michigan. So altogether, we anticipate if we combine, it's about $277,000 that we will receive from the state of Michigan to really write this plan and put it in place. So what I'm after you today for is to authorize us to regionalize with Grand Traverse and Leelanau County. If you do approve that, I will submit that to the state of Michigan to Eagle. And then from there, we'll bring back more information to you as far as the three-way agreement and such.
I would like to make the motion that the Board of Commissioners authorizes the submission of a notice of intent to regionalize with Grand Traverse and Leelanau County for the redrafting of the materials management plan and directs administration to submit such notice through the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy Materials Management Division, and further accepts the county approval agency responsibilities for the rewrite process.
Markey will support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion?
Just curious how the hierarchy's gonna fall with this. Is Grand Traverse gonna run the show, or are we gonna be able to maintain what we have here currently? Will SWAC be dissolved and everything? I'm a little apprehensive, especially accepting state money and where it might go, so those are my
No.
concerns.
So Benzie County maintains its own responsibilities. We're working together to write a plan that works for the three counties, but Benzie County maintains its own responsibilities for their county. So they're leading the charge in the sense of, working with the vendors. Obviously, we're going to have meetings and such, but they're going to kind of manage that process of writing this plan with a third-party vendor. But Benzie County maintains its authority to be responsible for its program. Part of doing this program is going to be a series of meetings. There's going to be, over the next 3 years, a dozen opportunities to have your input monthly. So regarding with the new law, there's a lot of meetings that have to be held with various stakeholders in the region. This committee it sounds crazy, but the committee is going to have over 20 people on it. And so you'll have an opportunity to say who represents Benzie County. SWAC would still be in place, but there will be then a regional entity as well that's part of all of this. But no, Benzie County maintains its authority over its system, its program. It's just a matter of regionalizing the plan so that there's some consistency in how we're doing things, because we really are very similar.
Well, we've had a good plan here all along. I just don't want to lose.
So,
So I would
yeah.
be, especially accepting state money, because there's always the devil's in the details type thing, so
So if
we'll
you,
just go from there.
if you want to get into the law, so part of the reason, not only is there's additional money, there's incentive to regionalize. The new law for materials management is very, very cumbersome. Benzie County does not have the bandwidth to do it, period. We just don't. The law's coming down because of, what they're requesting in Lansing. Benzie County needs to partner to make it work. Because right now we can't afford to do it on our own, basically.
The state's mandating
Correct.
that. Okay,
Yeah,
now
so,
you threw some more concern.
sorry. So, it makes sense to regionalize. I have a great relationship with Grand Traverse and Leelanau County. I worked down there for a lot of years. I have a lot of confidence in working with these folks. I don't anticipate any relationships that may have been in place 20 years ago where Benzie's the redheaded stepchild, as I've been told. We have great relationships with those two counties now. And I don't anticipate, they're wanting me at the table as an equal, not as a, hey, you get to follow along.
And one of the things, Katie, when I was reading through it and attending the meeting, this, by working together, it minimizes duplication
Correct.
of like legal fees and more. Instead of us all doing and then trying to communicate, we're saving there and communicating and having clarity. So for me, it made a lot of sense to make us stronger. And I agree with what you're saying on that we maybe used to be the redheaded stepchild, as you called it, but now we are seeing more as, and my sister's redheaded and gorgeous, but anyways, but for me to remove that duplication makes sense.
Well, and the new law requires certain people to serve on these different groups when they write this plan. And so if we were to go about it individually, those representatives, which are the same for our three counties for many things, they would have 3 times the amount of meetings as well, which also causes conflict. Part of this process is going to require meetings at every single township within Benzie County, going to require, meetings here in the county. It's going to require approval by this body in multiple facets. So we will very much be involved in the process, and you will very much have a say and have your opinions heard. It just makes sense to regionalize to try to streamline some of that process.
Yeah. I don't see Jesse here today. I would like to know if he's in support of this and when ultimately we're going to be kept apprised of how this is moving forward. Is that going to be your responsibility or his?
He's very much in support of this. He's been at all the meetings with me. I will, between the two of us, we will report to this board. There will also be opportunity for members of this board to be involved in the process as well. The first step in this whole thing, though, is just this letter of intent. And then later we'll come back with who's going to be representative of Benzie and, those sorts of things. Right now, the first step and where we're at is just to say, yeah, we want to work together. All that will come back probably in mid to late July, early August, because the deadline for this is the first part of July. And so then those things will start coming forward. Cole Stoker is the attorney for all 3 counties. So we already are passing around a draft agreement that will come before this board as well. And in that agreement, we'll have the opportunity to say Benzie wants X, Y, and Z in the relationship as well. But he is in support of this.
And you gave us the timeline
Very draft anticipated timeline. That's just some dates we threw together.
Okay.
I can tell you that up until today, it's accurate.
Okay.
So yeah, up until today it's accurate. We plan to keep it accurate from here on out, but it's just a draft plan we threw together.
Okay.
Katie, just a couple of questions, and it's really going to be in response to the questions or comments that have made here. But I'm going to preface this by saying that there's many opportunities for regionalization that I support. And I know that's been ongoing for some time, and even under Snyder's administration, they were supportive of regionalization. So this has been an ongoing objective. But going back to Gary's question or concern. You said there would be 20+ people in that committee. Will we have an equal number of people on that committee?
Yes, sir.
So we'll have an equal voice to everybody else.
Yes, sir. So a lot of the members are established in statute. So it's a waste hauler. It's a recycler in the area. So like we use Bark for a lot of things, a representative from Bark. Almost everybody in the region's on GFL. It would be a representative from GFL. So there's the first like 11 members are established in statute who equally represent all 3 counties. And then from there, there's representation from the counties and we would all get an equal part in that. Yes.
And once the document's drafted, which it's going to be some time, it looks like before
About
that's,
3 years.
Mhm.
but we still maintain our own decisions.
Correct.
So even though there's a document that we've all approved, if we have an event happening that doesn't really fit within that box, we can make our own decisions.
Even with the plan itself staying within that plan box, we make the decision as to how to implement that plan. And implementation may look different for all 3 counties, and you maintain that authority to implement as you see fit for Benzie.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Could be a silly question. I'm assuming because we're still continuing down this path, that both Grand Traverse and Leelanau counties are on board doing this too.
Absolutely. Everybody is on board. It's been being talked about with all the boards, all the SWAC boards. We've had a dozen or so meetings with Chris Forsyth and now Richard Lewis, who's the interim administrator for Leelanau. But everyone is fully on board. We weren't sure about Leelanau for a while there because there was a little turmoil going on in Leelanau, as you know. So we weren't fully sure on Leelanau, but they are on board now.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Kurnat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. So we have a couple of presentations. The first one we'll start with is Benzie Bus Resolution for Millage Proposal Presentation. Thanks for being here this morning, Jessica.
For having me.
Chad?
I brought Chad, Operations Manager. Most of you know Chad. And then I just wanted to introduce Sophia Hogarth. Sophia is our new mobility coordinator. So you'll see Sophia out in the community. So I just thought we're here. We might as well bring her along too.
Thank you.
So as you know, we are going to have a millage increase request on the August ballot. That was a hard decision to make. The board's been discussing it for over a year. And that is the decision we've come to. So we currently have a 0.5 mil. That's the original mill from when we were first became a transit authority in 2006. And it's been renewed every year very successfully. Why are we asking for an increase? Probably no surprise, our operating costs have gone up substantially since 2019, 38% to be exact. A lot of that is labor and benefits. We've had to increase wages to keep up with demand. It's much more difficult to get a CDL license and to hire CDL drivers. That's a big part of it. Parts and service for vehicles, our fleet is aging. There continue to be supply chain issues as a result of COVID. So it's costing a lot more money to keep our old buses on the road. We have recently done our best to, instead of dumping money into old buses, we've purchased used vehicles from other transits in the state of Michigan. Chad and I went down to Lenawee Transit Authority near Ohio a few weeks ago or a month ago and purchased a very nice bus for $1,200. So that saved us a bunch of money on other repairs. So we're making really responsible choices that way. But at the end of the day, sometimes we just have to make those expensive repairs. And then, of course, fuel and propane are high and continue to be high. And we're much busier, so we're driving more, so we're spending more on fuel. Who are our passengers, in case we haven't been here informing you of that recently? Over half of our passengers are over the age of 60 or disabled. Doug Duran from Benzie Senior Resources has told you about the population growth in that demographic, so you're all aware of that. 70% of all trips on Benzie Bus are for essential services, access to food, access to medical care, social services, education, and employment. 25% of our trips are students going to after-school activities or school of choice students as well. Those populations have increased in both school districts as well. And then 2,500 Benzie residents use Benzie Bus. So that's 13.5% of our population is using the bus service. So that's been quite an increase. And we're averaging about 530 trips per day. That's up from 350 in 2019. So we've seen significant growth. How are we going to use this revenue should the increased millage pass? The first phase is adding more service to keep up with the current demand. That's a huge struggle at the moment. We would also expand our health ride service, which is our out-of-county medical service. That's grown substantially since it launched in 2022. And then Saturdays have also increased demand as well, 30% there. Phase 2, we would expand that medical service again to be 5 days a week. And then we would implement Sunday service, limited service on Sundays to help people get to church. That's been a request for quite some time, and we haven't had the bandwidth to do it. And then the third part of the expansion plan for the millage increase funding would be to focus on responding to some other requested needs from passengers. Specifically, later evening service has been a request. We're only open until 8 p.m. currently, and they'd like to see us open until 6 days a week. So that would be the third phase, is helping those in the hospitality business, in healthcare, manufacturing, the shift workers, expanding those hours so we can better serve them. If it were to fail, we would first cut all of our non-essential services, what we consider non-essential, the airport trips, the Crystal Lake Express, which is the late night summer service that goes until midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. Perhaps package delivery service, definitely the night owl services, which we do New Year's Eve and Halloween. Those are important. It keeps drunk drivers off the road, but those are also the most expensive services to run. So that would be the initial phase. And then we would, regroup. We're going out early. This millage wouldn't go in effect for us until January 26th. So we would regroup and make another ask after we hear feedback from the community. So we're happy to answer any questions.
Ready?
I'd like to ask a few. I do understand MTF funds have basically been increasing at about 5% over the last year. So you are getting more money in gas tax.
We're not. The CTF funds have decreased. That's where our money comes from.
And what is your fund balance currently?
We have $1.8 million in our fund balance,
Okay.
which would get us about 4 months of operating costs.
If everything's shut down.
If
But
everything's
you're gonna
shut
get-
down.
You're gonna get income anyway, because you're doubling the millage.
Correct,
And that's gonna generate, what, 1.7 million, something like that?
something like that.
That's so,
Mhm.
that's a big ask,
We understand.
especially in a community where it's tough to pay your taxes as it is.
Mhm.
And we have huge problems with inflation. You aren't the only ones that have to pay more for gas. The folks
Understood.
that have to go to work and support this thing, so I'm just, I guess I wish you hadn't asked for a double, but, I am a little concerned.
So the board thought that is the statutory limit. And we don't ever want to have to ask again. As
So
part
if
of
you
the.
decide you don't need it, you lower,
Absolutely. Yeah.
not that it's been done in the past, but I'm just asking.
No, absolutely, we would. Should something amazing happen at the state level and our funding get increased there, which is something we've been advocating for. We've spent a lot of time in Lansing doing just that. We would absolutely ask for less locally.
Mhm. Well, I'm not trying to pick on you, but
No.
I want the folks to
appreciate it.
understand what's going on.
Yep.
That's all. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. So,
yeah, not a
thank you.
problem. Thank
Yep.
you.
Anybody else? You have a motion prepared for this, Katie?
So technically, you don't have to adopt a motion. The Benzie Transportation Authority is its own authority. If you so chose to, you could.
I don't see any reason to, because they've already got it on the ballot, correct? And it was just information.
Yep,
that
just
you're telling-
information and to help answer
Appreciate it,
questions
yeah.
like that.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Because we're not taking any action on it, I do want to voice an opinion on this.
Mhm.
I believe strongly that it's good that we have public transportation in Benzie County. And I applaud the group that worked for a decade trying to make all of this happen. It's my opinion that you have well exceeded what the original mission was for Benzie Bus. And you stated some of those discretionary services that you're providing. And I believe that before you go to the community asking for more money, you just simply have to accept the fact that I can't provide these discretionary services anymore. I can't take people to the airport. I can't deliver packages. I can't pick up people from the bar. And then these are your words, non-essential. Yet we're asking the taxpayer to fund those things.
I would argue that the bar pickups are essential because we're keeping drunk drivers off of the road. But staying open, the late night weekend service, perhaps not. And we would certainly take a closer look at that.
Now, I guess I would defer to the sheriff's office to tell me, has there been a reduction in drunk driving arrests during that period of time? How long have you been offering that service?
2017?
Since
2018?
2017?
Mm-hmm.
Again, don't walk away from this thinking that I'm not supportive of public transportation. I clearly am. But just like every other department, every other agency, when you have a reduction in funding, we immediately want to run to the taxpayer and say, make me whole. Versus what is it that I have to do internally to get from where I'm currently at to maybe when they increase the funding again? Because the question was asked, well, would you stop requesting the full millage if I don't need it? I hardly doubt we'd ever do that. Once we start collecting those funds, they're just embedded. You'd have to give me examples of when it's not.
Well, should the state funding be increased? We wouldn't need as much local funding.
Oh, I get that.
So that's been decreased quite a bit. So that's something being worked on at the state level.
It's been decreased to state funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is that the millage that we're currently collecting, you want to double that. You made the comment that, yeah, if we really didn't need it, we wouldn't ask for the assessment, the full assessment. I've just never seen that, where the only place I've ever really seen it when we didn't do it here was with the VA. And they voluntarily 1 year for multiple years reduced what they needed. Otherwise, I just never seen it.
We'd be happy to be the first.
Okay.
But if I could, Mr. Chair, I sit on the board with the Benzie Bus and it's a good board. And I know we've sat at this table many times saying we need the public to trust us, saying we would roll back millages if we don't need them, right? And we ask for trust to this board. What I would trust that board would do the same that we're asking everybody else to. Why wouldn't we trust them if we're asking other people to trust us? So I support them.
Anybody else?
Well, I appreciate what you just said, Evan, there. And also with the bus system, I am a person who has used the bus quite a bit. And it's a dependable, great run service that you give. And I also see it working hand in glove with how we're developing as a community. We're trying to get more business and availability for people to go where they need to get if they don't have a car. And this is the most dependable public service, bus service I have ever experienced. I mean, I know it's a small community, but it is exemplar what you do. And I see it hand in glove with supporting the population and what we're trying to do in Benzie with getting a working community and getting us functional. So, and I do really appreciate the board and I do trust the board, and I knew you were on it, but I trust you on that, and you gave us, this is what you gave us black and white here. You know, this is what we're offering, so you're communicating. And I would, just to say what Art said in support of what he said, and probably what some of us are thinking, that you keep educating the public before that becomes, so they understand this is what where we would have to cut if we did, and the reasons, and the trust that you would be willing to be the first to step back if it wasn't needed. So I am in total support and know it from my history and working with you guys.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
We're gonna move on to a presentation from Venture North on the Benzie County impact. Good morning.
Right. Do you want me to control or do you guys want to control? We can control if that helps. Got control, I have full control. Scroll back up. Let's see. Okay, can I do presentation mode? There. Okay. Good morning. I'm Laura Galbraith. I'm president of Venture North Funding and Development, and I brought my colleague Betsy Evans, who does work on behalf of Venture North, providing technical assistance to clients in Benzie County. As you can see on our first slide, we're highlighting a handful of Benzie County-based businesses that Venture North has helped over the years. I think we've been in front of you for a little over 10 years now, highlighting the work of the Community Development Block Grant Loan Fund, CDBG. But we wanted to just highlight some other work that we're doing in your community that you may not be familiar with. I think in your board packet, we also included a 26-page document because the contract for CDBG is coming up for renewal at the end of June. And so we just wanted you to be aware of that. So Venture North, I think we've invited a few of you actually were able to attend. We had our 15-year celebration last year. And it was really just to thank all of those who've supported us over the years, including Benzie County. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We started during the economic recession. So the best way to describe Venture North is a financial first responder. We had started because of a lot of the businesses and the banking community was not able to help many of those in 2008. And so we were able to start with a small loan fund, and then we're able to continue to find capital such as the revolving loan fund that we manage with CDBG, but we also have loan funds with USDA and with many of our community foundations and bank CRA funds as well. We are a mission lender. So mission meaning we're looking at underserved populations, helping those entrepreneurs who may be minority owned, women owned, low income rural communities. We're really looking at the community impact of a project, assuring that jobs are being created, that they're able to pay family sustaining wages, that it may be an essential service to a community such as a daycare center, or even a grocery store for those food deserts that we experience across the 10 counties that we serve. We do offer affordable, flexible lending
through our loan programs. Fortunately, the CDBG loan fund that we manage on behalf of Benzie County has been priced below market rate. It's been about 2 to 3% interest with no closing fees, which is attractive to many of the businesses as we're looking at 8.5% interest right now in the current market. And we also offer free coaching and consulting. As I said, Betsy is one of our staff members that is able to provide those services to businesses for free. Here's the rest of our team. As I mentioned, we cover 10 counties. So over to the far right, Annie Olds is our business development coach. She's based in Kalkaska and is able to help those businesses in Wexford, Antrim, Kalkaska, Missaukee counties. We have Sarah Christensen, who really works to as a initial intake person and helps with collections on all of our loans and repayment. She lives in Boyne City. Steve Brower, who's a retired commercial lender from West Shore Bank, lives in Manistee. Betsy lives in Benzie County. And then our communications team, which we have 4 professional individuals that do a lot of work on writing, communications, social media. I'm going to have Betsy kind of talk a little bit about some of the coaching and consulting that we do, and also just highlight a program that we have. We pay a subscription to what's called Initiate, and she can kind of give you an idea of what that has to offer to Benzie businesses as well.
Hi, thanks, Laura. Yes, Betsy Evans and I, sorry.
Thank you.
Betsy Evans, and I serve as a business development coach, primarily for Benzie County, but also Manistee, Leelanau, Grand Traverse, wherever might be needed. I'm an independent contractor for Venture North, but my piece of this puzzle is to offer direct business assistance in the way of technical assistance. So if they are an entrepreneur and are interested in writing a business plan, if they need a loan, whether it be from us or a bank, I can help them with their loan preparation and their business planning, their financial projections. Excuse me. And I also help with businesses that are looking to grow, that want to do some strategic planning in that area, or maybe some marketing assistance, developing financial processes, sort of whatever is necessary. And again, I'm happy to say that it is at no cost to the businesses. So as far as economic development in Benzie County, I like to think we offer direct business services. We actually go in and work with the businesses, and I'm really proud to help the businesses in our community. The Initiate is an online resource that is available to all of our clients or anyone that I work with at no cost. So again, it has sort of, just from the slide, you can see there's 4 major components, which is startup, money, marketing, management. And in each of those, there are tutorials and templates and guides and all. It's a huge resource for anyone that is more comfortable in navigating some online work. And it's really been a great thing for the businesses to be able to utilize on their own at their own time. So that's my role in Venture North. And again, it's nice that we have our different consultants are kind of geographically throughout the region. So we do have some that serve different sort of geographical areas. We all have our different areas of expertise. But I think it's a big piece for any business that's looking to grow or get a loan. The other thing that I want to just throw out there for a little plug for Venture North is I'm proud because we can offer, again, for maybe an entrepreneur, maybe somebody who's is not bankable through their traditional, whoever they have a banking relationship with. It's a little riskier endeavor that they're trying to undertake, and the bank's not comfortable with that. Or there are some banks that aren't comfortable lending to different industries. So I think Venture North is one of that is willing to take a little higher risk and is willing to work with the businesses to make sure that, yes, even though this might seem like a riskier loan, let's help you throughout the life of the loan and beyond with different technical areas of technical assistance to make sure that you won't default on that loan, and we're helping you be a strong business. So tag team this morning. So you're very familiar with the CDBG loan fund that we manage. I just wanted to share, we do have 2 other loan funds that we manage. So we do, as Betsy said, we help startups. We are able to help many of those who are starting with a loan less than $50,000.
We do work with those businesses, again, packaging it with our technical assistance with our team to make sure they're successful. A lot of times within the first 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 3 years, there's a lot of just unanticipated issues, challenges, questions, and we're there really to help those businesses as they need somebody to talk to. We also help with the existing established businesses, and the maximum amount that we can loan is $350,000. So this just kind of gives you an idea of how those are structured, what we ask for, what are the typical terms. And then I think the next slide, this is really just hyper focused on CDBG. So we're really pleased that we've been able to deploy almost 800,000 out of the CDBG loan fund. And so these are the businesses that we've been able to help in Benzie County, the dates that we closed the loans, what is their the outstanding balance on their loans today. So we have 55,000 that's left in repayment. We have never had any issues with any of the businesses. They're all in good standing. They've all paid timely. And they've met the national objective, which with CDBG, it's creating jobs. And so these businesses over the past few years have been able to create 25 jobs with this particular loan fund. And we have 100,000 left available to lend. So we are actively looking for more projects so we can help another Benzie-based business with this loan fund. And then I think the next slide, we just wanted to highlight, oh gosh, it's so touchy. We just wanted to highlight outside of CDBG, we've been able to help other Benzie-based businesses over the past 15 years. And so that's totally 1.6 million. So we've helped 18 businesses, 1.6 million, creating 70 jobs and retaining 170. And the long list, some of a startup that we helped, and maybe Betsy can give just some highlights. Coastline Cycles in Frankfurt is a startup that we helped. And then we also were able to help recently Frank's, who's also in Frankfurt. I don't know if you want to just add anything specific to those particular projects, or if you have questions, we can answer those for you. And then I guess finally, our cumulative, so across the 10 counties, we've been able to deploy 10.6 million. So we've been able to help 178 different businesses, creating 537 jobs, retaining 587 jobs. And we do have a diverse portfolio. About 30% are startups, the rest are existing or in growth phase. And then the same with industry sector. We do help manufacturing, agriculture, hospitality, retail. So it's a diverse portfolio. And then I think finally, today's intent was really to give you more of an overview of the work we're doing in Benzie County. But as I mentioned earlier, we do have our agreement, which is called the subrecipient agreement. I think that it was included in your board packet. It's 26 pages. It really is to identify each party's responsibility. Nothing's changed since over 10 years ago when we first had this agreement in place. But it is just to highlight what we do on behalf of Benzie County, and then your role assuring that the process is followed. It's come to maturity June 30th of 2024, and then we are asking when ready to have the agreement extend to June 30th, 2027. And that's all of my presentation. Any questions?
Questions for Laura? Board Betsy?
I have one question. Thank you, Laura and Betsy. My question, it says here, or you've mentioned many jobs and how many jobs you've had in total. You don't have any say over, this is the question, you don't have any say over the level of the job. Is it at minimum wage? Do you know any statistics on that?
With CDBG, we get down to that level of detail. We have to have, so with the businesses that you've seen listed that use CDBG, we do have to have a wage certification that identifies what was your income at time of hire, What is your household income? If you have 5 people that are living in your home, you count the wages of all 5 individuals in that community. Are you receiving benefits, 401k? So that's really where we're able to track the wage level of people who've been hired with Benzie County. We also, on the other loan funds that we manage, we do talk about workforce. We talk about trying to be realistic with your jobs that you're creating and retaining. And are you paying family sustaining
Right.
wages? And we keep track of what that is on an annual basis when it changes. Because I think that's the biggest challenge is not being able to pay people a fair wage. We do have a lot of low income households and we're trying to get people out of poverty. That's essentially what our mission is. And so we do coach the business owners on what you should be hiring people at, based on some of the data that we have available.
Okay, that's what I was looking to hear is the education portion of it.
Mhm.
And then we also do you work with Grow Benzie at all directly or?
We do, yes. Do you want to talk a little bit about just some of the collaboration we have with other organizations?
Yeah, we haven't. So what we don't, I mean, oftentimes we have used their facility and a lot of times for outreach and, or if we're doing workshops. And that's a good way to have a meeting space with a lot of people. So we don't work, I mean, we do get referrals, particularly from the agricultural community, from
think.
Grow Benzie or some of their entrepreneurs that are utilizing their commercial kitchen.
Sure.
So I have worked with some of those businesses in that arena directly. So yeah, it's been a good relationship and we do have, communication with all, community development and all the economic development agencies throughout the region that we, get referrals from or work with directly.
I'm happy to hear that. That's what I would like to, want it to be educated about was the collaboration there because that is there for that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Art, I'm sorry.
You have anything, Melissa? 3 questions for you. Betsy, how much demand has there been for business consulting in Benzie County in the last 12 months?
Well, I mean, we don't necessarily, we're not having an ad in the newspaper. So a lot of the coaching and consulting we do is through either if we have a workshop and then afterward, people say, I'd like to follow up and I'd like some technical assistance or with existing business clients or people seeking a loan. So a lot of times we'll get a referral from a banker, Steve Mitchell will say, okay, we're working on a loan for a restaurant. We're able to fund to X amount. There's a little gap there, about 50,000 that they need. Venture North is we have the capacity to take a second to that, to take a non-collateralized loan, but we'll also then work with that business to make sure we have all the loan prep. They have all the right financial projections. We need to be comfortable in, filling that gap funding as well. So a lot of times it comes from different referral sources, not necessarily directly from the businesses that just pick up the phone and think, oh, I'll call Venture North today, just because I just think we're not top of mind.
But do you have a sense of what that number is, regardless of how they get to you?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say, so at any time, I probably am working with about a dozen businesses and that, sometimes there's ebb and flow to that. So, it can be sometimes, I'm super busy. We have been really, we've been doing some daycare workshops. I call them my daycare boot camps. And so I'm helping with different daycares in the region to start businesses, but also again, making sure that they have the resources and the support so that they don't just start and then fail. So we've done a lot of outreach with daycares in that arena. So sometimes that, when I'm doing the boot camps and there's a lot more businesses, but I'd say at any time, usually I'm working with about 12 businesses at a time.
And that's in Benzie County.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the obstacle, if any, of people getting loans? I see we haven't made any loans since 22. And when I was on the EDC board, we had a hard time getting people to qualify and or come in. Can you share with us, are there many applications? And if there are, why don't they get funded?
So the 2022 statistic was specifically for CDBG. We have funded businesses in 2024. We've had a handful, it's May, I think we've had maybe 2 loans that we've closed. I think the obstacle is the cost of capital. I think that a lot of people assume a non-traditional organization such as ours is going to be charging them prime +2, +3, +10. So we're trying from a branding perspective to get around that and to be really upfront saying, no, you know, because of the source of capital that we receive, we can do low cost capital. I think the cost of everything is another challenge. I think you look at construction costs, it's increased. People are a little apprehensive to take on debt. I think they want to wait for the economy to see what's going to be like by the end of the year, see what it's going to be like next year, push off that expansion project that they were thinking of doing, not starting that business because there's a little volatility. So I think it's a kind of, we make some assumptions on why people aren't moving forward. But that's kind of what we've been hearing as we've been talking to businesses.
And I guess a little more direct feedback. So with the CDBG is essentially you're eligible for $35,000 at that low interest rate for each job created. So sometimes the people say, I don't know if I can guarantee I'm going to hire 2 people and maintain them as employees, not just seasonal. So sometimes that could be a barrier as they're afraid to commit to that job creation that they need to maintain. And there's also, I think a lot of it is the process. It takes longer because it needs to be approved ultimately by the commissioners. It needs to be a little more public that, you know, that Fortress Security is requesting $70,000 and some businesses are just not, they don't want to share all that. So sometimes it's the timing. I can get a loan and I can be closed in a month, or the CDBG, we're really talking a couple months by the time you go through the processes that need to happen.
Sure. Last question. There were several reasons why we contracted with Venture North with the RD loans. One of them was that we were getting a lot of pressure for them to claw back that money because we weren't loaning it out as fast as they wanted us to. Is that pressure now gone?
No, the pressure is every 2 years, we have to have a project closed. So we met that requirement with Eclipse Communications last year. So we have another 1.5 years until that 2-year timeframe pops back up again.
Okay.
We only have $100,000 to deploy in Benzie County, and then all of it will be defederalized. I didn't mention that we have 1.6 million of defederalized loan funds from all of Benzie County and Grand Traverse County, getting the money out into the community, having it get repaid, and then it goes back into that DFED, as they call it, pot of money. So we just need a business that's going to hire 3 jobs, or a handful of businesses that are going to create 1 job to be able to get that 100,000 out into the community. And then we don't have to worry about it ever again.
Sure.
Fortunately, the federal ties will be removed and we won't have to go through that process anymore.
And just to clarify something you said, when those loans for Benzie County go back into repayment, they go back into a fund that is eligible then for your total population.
Yep.
Including Benzie County.
Including Benzie County. And we have been able to use that pot of money across the 10-county region. Just recently, MEDC did say we can start using those loan funds. It's been really helpful for us to help. Again, Betsy mentioned daycare centers, and some of our other more vulnerable businesses that may need to take a little bit more risk. So it's been great to have access to those loan funds.
Good. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody
Thank you
else?
very much for your support.
Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We're gonna move on to presentation from Broadband Digital Equity Task Force. You're up. Morning.
You want me to drive or do you want?
I can right click button.
Yeah.
All right. It is touchy, isn't it?
It is touchy.
Okay, we'll try this. All right, good morning. My name is Pierrette Renee Dag. I'm the Director of Research at Merit Network. I am joined today by a number of folks from the Benzie County Broadband Task Force. And today, essentially what we are going to do is talk a little bit about this group of citizens came together, facilitated
both with the approval of the county and then with Grow Benzie, to develop a digital opportunity plan and recommendations that the county may want to consider moving forward on. So my goal today is just to present the results of the work of the group of citizens and what they've been doing for about the past 8 to 9 months. A little bit about, oh, now we're not going. Would you like to drive?
I will try.
Okay, so if we move on, just a little bit about my organization. If you're not familiar with us, we are Merit Network. So we are the longest running research and education network in the United States. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are owned and governed by the public universities in Michigan. So we provide services like this to municipalities, schools, K-12s, other nonprofits in the state. And this slide, we provided a pretty robust packet to everyone, so I'm happy to answer any questions on it. But in the sake of time, essentially what this serves to demonstrate is that a lot of programs that focus on helping to build skills and build digital equity in communities just really focus on, we're going to give people classes, we're going to give them devices, and we're going to say, okay, let's time to move on. And that's really great for a small snapshot in time. That does not build essentially an environment where people are empowered to continue to grow as technology grows, as applications change, and as they're able to do things or need to do things online for work and things like that as things evolve. This is just a history of a lot of the work that Benzie County has been doing before and after Merit. You're all probably much more familiar with this than I am. Go on. So what we did is we started by just identifying a task force of residents who wanted to participate in this process. We met both virtually in person over the course of 7 months. And my role here in this was merely to help facilitate the conversation. So all of the recommendations that I'll go over, unfortunately, very quickly, just in the sake of time, those were all driven and decided by the citizens. So our role was simply to help people facilitate all of these things. You can see here, this is an example of all the people that were participating in the task force and also a lot of the businesses and organizations that participated. So it was a very robust group of individuals who put a lot of time and a lot of effort into trying to help the community. So together they created a shared definition of digital equity. The goal here is that digital equity ensures everyone has the same opportunities within the county to access digital tools like high-speed internet, devices, and literacy programs. So that way they can fully participate in all the facets of society and help technology turn into a bridge that enhances civic involvement, employment, education, and healthcare access. We identified 3 long-term goals. So this is the best, most perfect scenario where we're hoping to go here. So obviously connectivity and affordability. We are in a long-term goal looking to have everyone who would desire to be connected to high-speed internet connected in a way that is affordable. We are ultimately seeking the objective to create a strong quality of life and an environment that empowers everyone to be able to take full advantage and meaningful advantage of technology, and also to ensure that anyone that wants to gain digital skills has the opportunity to do so. Then we identified quite a long list of short-term goals and actions that contribute to those, and these are some of them. We talked a lot about connectivity and affordability, so this includes taking advantage of the unprecedented historical infrastructure funding opportunities, both at a state and a national level. If you want to move on. Continuing to monitor broadband expansion, so there are a lot of entities regionally and then also within the county who have already received some funds, whether that's through the Robin, RDOF, or the BEAD program. So we're recommending that we continue to monitor those funds to ensure that the communication to residents is happening in a timely manner. Residents understand when things are going in and what they should expect. And then also to just keep an eye on in case there happen to be any defaults on some of these programs so that we're aware of it. Conducting a digital equity asset map and needs assessment. So essentially there are a lot of resources already in Benzie County, organizations who are doing some training, some programming, some things going on in the schools, some community organizations. And one of the big challenges right now is that nobody knows what everybody else is doing. And that is common in almost every community that we have worked in because everybody does their best and there's no centralized authority to kind of maintain these things. So one of the recommendations is to conduct this Digital Equity Act map and needs assessment. I'll pause here to also just mention briefly, we've also worked with some grant organizations. So at the end of the presentation, we've included the most likely source for funding to conduct all these. So the recommendations are not do this at the cost of the county. The recommendations are do this if you choose to do this, and here are the ways that you might pay for it. If you want to move on, we are also talking about the potential of developing a digital dashboard. So including all of these opportunities, all of the trainings, the resources, and then also the capacity to help more residents as well. So if you, for example, got a program that helps seniors understand how to get online to connect maybe with grandkids who are far away, we would have all of these things listed online so that way people at senior centers or at libraries or something like that knows where to send them and how to sign them up for those sorts of things. Identifying funding to support a digital navigator in Benzie County is also a strong recommendation of the group. So a digital navigator is a person whose job it is to either go to where the people are that need them or to be there housed perhaps in a library. So it's essentially like a reference desk or a reference librarian for technology. I have this new modem, but my internet is slow and I don't really know how to use it. Can you help me set up my phone? Those sorts of things. That's what this person's job is. The state of Michigan has passed their Digital Equity Act plan, and they've identified that they are going to deploy 10 of these individuals, one in each prosperity region. And given the size of Benzie County's population, yeah, I think that we may need more than one. So that's one recommendation there. Also continuing to support this task force. So right now the task force came into existence to develop this plan. They've worked very hard on it. They've helped identify the funding opportunities. So we're recommending that we continue to do this as well to help carry out some of these plans if they're decided to move forward. There are also other educational existing resources. So when we talk about helping people do training, get access to information, classes, handouts, brochures, those sorts of things, there are a lot of new resources that are going to be developed. So the state of Michigan in their plan, because they're receiving more than $1 billion to do this throughout the state, they'll be developing a lot of those things. And then Merit Network, my organization, we also received a grant from the USDA to help go into communities, understand what some of these needs are in terms of digital equity and digital skilling and understanding how to create more jobs online. So we're also going to be developing a lot of these materials. So we're just recommending that there is some effort to help continue to disseminate that to residents. We're also suggesting to develop an ongoing strategy for device accessibility. So this continues in a lot of our rural communities that we work in to be a challenge. Devices either break or they age out or they become irrelevant or something like that. There are some state and national programs that we can interface with and ask about. They specifically work with very large businesses when they no longer need their technology. Similarly to how we heard the folks from the bus authority buying a used bus, there are programs where these nonprofits will refurbish donated devices from larger organizations and hand them out. And we're also suggesting that maybe we talk to existing businesses because it's a pretty common practice with existing businesses in all communities to find somewhere to dispose of what they consider e-waste, which are still usable devices. We're also suggesting to continue to have a relationship with the state of Michigan's digital equity plan. So this plan was more than 100 pages of programs that the state of Michigan intends to roll out over the next several years with the more than $1 billion they're receiving from the federal government. So just keeping an eye on especially some of the healthcare telehealth programs for folks who may be homebound. There are also a lot of job programs that the state of Michigan is planning on deploying as well. So it's something that we should continue to stay apprised of. There are some other next steps that we talked about in less detail in the plan, sustaining the task force and to continue to seek new membership, maintaining partnerships with Grow Benzie and CBAN to continue to identify other funding opportunities, exploring the funding opportunities we do identify in the programming, considering there are some groups. So for example, my nonprofit has a community of practice where we've got more than 40 other municipalities who send representatives, just to understand how a lot of other similar communities are approaching some of these challenges. Sometimes they work together to approach some of these national groups for support and help. And it's just a quarterly online group that meets, if that's something that it's really open to anybody. So that's one suggestion if there's any interest there in collaboration. Other areas for future consideration. So on helping citizens to understand how to interact more with county and local government, trying to consider ways we can measure some of these. So we've created a whole lot of suggestions for next steps. We understand where we want to go. We understand the very next steps. And then there's a lot of things we need to figure out in between. So trying to understand what a more full-fledged plan would look like for 5 to 10 years, and then also how we can measure the efficacy of that is the next step there. And then I have a whole list here. I won't go into it very much. The document that's been shared is hyperlinked. So some of the funding sources, we've matched every recommendation. And I haven't provided a lot of detail just in the sake of timeliness, but every recommendation within the plan has been matched with a funding source. So we've got federal sustainability plans, so Digital Equity Act funds. There are public grant funding. So these that have identified in public grant funding are open now, and they focus on various areas. So whether it's agriculture, tourism, telemedicine, or education. There are private and nonprofit grant funding opportunities as well. So there are some from 4-H. There's also some from the Bell Foundation that would be a very good match for these programs. And then there are future opportunities that are cyclical, so we know are coming again. So there's the USDA rural development programs. I did receive $1 million grant to continue this work throughout the state of Michigan and other communities. The work that we did in Benzie County, Merit did as a nonprofit, but we sought and received funding to be able to continue this in other communities. And that program is something the Community Connect, Reconnect, and the Broadband Technical Assistance Grants, Benzie County would be eligible for all of those, and the Department of Labor as well. And I've also included the most likely sources for ongoing new funding. So it's my final recommendation here that if this is work that the county or the task force continues to want to seek out after our involvement ends, these are the entities that should be considered in just continuing to look for new funding opportunities. I'm happy to answer any questions.
We also have some of the task force members here too, who can come up and kind of speak about what we did and answer any questions that everyone may have.
One of the questions I would have, when you're talking about digital equity with people that are new to using these services, are you talking about security with these people? Because that's huge. And a lot of people get their first phone and they're doing online stuff. Their information's out there. Yeah, I want to sign up. I'm going to order something. Oh, my credit card. Here you go. Now I get a reoccurring charge on my statement every month for something I don't ever use. I just want to make sure that's included.
Yeah, that is a very large component, and I'm very glad you asked that. This federal funds, the IIJA and BEAD all have one measurable requirement of including safe online secure practices in everything that you do. So all of the training includes that.
And also, I mean, people understand that now I have a device that has a microphone on it and I have access to the internet. All these devices like Siri and Alexa, they're listening all the time.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Media literacy, device literacy, and information literacy are also critical.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just, from the MAC conference, first of all, I guess I'll complain about Mercury. They got one of the grants in our township and nothing's getting done. They do have till 28. Anyway, I don't know if you can speed that process up. Residents are a little unhappy. And the other thing that was brought up at the MAC conference was the overlap. A lot of, can't remember what county it was, they were coming in there and installing more fiber and stuff and actually going over stuff that was already done. How come there's no basically a central, I guess we got to blame the government, but how come they're not watching what's going on and where this stuff's being done? One township had 2 or 3 providers and everything around them got nothing. So I'm just curious, how is there a way to seems to be communication is a real big problem.
Yeah, and I think this is a great opportunity. I would actually love if it's okay to ask Tom to come and speak about this. It has been an ongoing challenge. So my organization got into this work in 2018 because in 2018, when they were starting to deploy federal funds, there was a thing called Form 477. And basically that was essentially the very first map where the federal government said, these are the folks that have infrastructure, these are the folks that don't. So we're only funding the areas that don't. And Merit has mapped the statistical equivalent of 60% of the state of Michigan since then. And throughout the process, we found in every single community we worked in between 45 and 65% incorrect reporting on those federal maps. The government has since revised it several times and it's starting to get a little bit better, but you are 1,000% correct. And that there are, this is nothing that is specific to your area. This is a pervasive problem throughout the United States. There are either areas of deep overbuild or complete fallow infrastructure, which is why one of the recommendations is Tom is running on a subcommittee right now. And the subcommittee strategically only focused on this singular issue. So I would ask him to speak about that. But that's one of the recommendations is that there is nobody doing this, which is why you need to do this for your county.
Oh, got surprised. Hi. Hi, I'm Tom Sentlever. I'm a Benzie County resident in Benzonia. And I share your frustration with Mercury. We have,
Thank you.
we had a little surprise here about 10 months ago that we didn't have internet. We weren't going to get internet for a time being. But to the point that Brett was talking about with regard to why does there seem like there's overlap? Over the last, it seems like it's been last 6 or 7 months, but it's really been the last 3 or 4 months. We've really focused in on this whole idea of who has internet and who doesn't. And the MyHigh, the state group, has issued a map that has a bunch of dots on it, red, yellow, and green. And we've been tracking on where do we actually have service that's been provided, and we are confident that the service is provided. And are there other locations within the county where service they say has been provided, but isn't? And so we've been going through an effort to identify where we are confident where we have service rendered and starting to challenge where it isn't. And that's all part of this process that's going statewide. And so Benzie, we've taken a very, I'll call it very focused approach. We aren't trying to go check all 13,000 dots on the maps. We are confident there's certain areas of the county where we do have internet access readily available today through either Charter or Centec or the other providers. But there are some areas that are what we'll call gray zones that suspect whether or not they're actually being delivered and can be delivered and will be delivered. So we have just finished, Jackie, help me here, probably within the last 3 or 4 weeks, our challenge period. We had an extended period. We thought we only had like a month, but it turned out to be about 2 months. And for those of us that were involved in it, it seemed like it kept dragging on, and we found more opportunities. But the idea was that we were able to challenge certain geographic locations on whether or not they had internet. And so those have been challenged. And I can't tell you how many the number is at the moment. I'm afraid I wasn't prepared for that answer. But we did identify a number of locations that need to be challenged, and that clock stopped. And now the ISP providers, whether it's Spectrum, whether it's a Centec, or whoever else within the county, has a period of time, I think it's 40 days, to review these challenges and provide a response back to the state organization. The third part of the process then in this July, August timeframe will be the state, my high office will make a decision, whether it's yes or no. And that will help firm up what needs to happen in Benzie County and through the rest of the counties in the state of Michigan. What locations will be covered in this immediate BEAD program?
Which is funding. It's
Right.
funding for infrastructure.
And I want to thank you, Tom. You've been on the ground. You started showing interest in this effort right from the beginning. I appreciate that. So for those of us who did not see the yellow or orange fiber coming down our road and had to go a Starlink route, do we have a colored dot? Are we considered served by Starlink or only if you're served by fiber?
Most of our focus has all been on fiber, and I share your pain. I do have a location that has a Starlink satellite dish. The intent is to find locations that for anything that was satellite dish, that was kind of off the map. We're trying to get fiber into Benzie County for all. That's the objective.
Let me say it a different way. Would Starlink customers be considered under or unserved?
I would think they
For
would
the
be
purposes of-
unserved.
Yes.
Unserved for the purposes
Of-
of
of
what
this,
we're working
right.
on. Yes.
So
Okay.
the idea would be is if you're on a satellite dish today and we were successful for all, at some point, someone would be knocking on the door and say, hey, I got fiber running outside your property and we can get it to your house. That would be the objective. We got a ways to go, but that's the objective.
The state of Michigan's received quite a bit of money from the federal government. The objective with the state of Michigan is to build fiber to every single home. We know objectively that the amount of money that they will receive is not going to do that. So these maps they're primarily fiber.
I have another question, if that's okay. Okay, so my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this digital equity piece was required for BEAD funding without a lot of direction. It was just kind of like, we need to address digital equity. And so Benzie County acted and responded and came up with this wonderful product that you've all put so much effort into. My question would be, that was use of ARPA dollars that made that happen. Moving forward, the digital equity need is not going to go away. Is this going to continue to be a county funded effort, or at some point are the different entities going to take over this piece and run with it?
So every bit of this does not cost the county a penny. This was free. The Merit was able to get a grant to help fund this process, and everyone who's been involved in the task force, it's all been on a volunteer basis.
That's good to know. I thought
Yeah.
that part of.
So the ARPA piece that the county, that's specific to the Cherry Capital relationship and that connection and the customers we're serving under the actual broadband build piece of it. This digital equity piece is separate. Yes, it all ties together, and Tim and all the providers are saying we need to address digital equity. It's a goal and a priority of the MyHigh office to also address digital equity. Benzie is one of 3 counties who have went a step further with Merit to do this task force.
Okay, at some point I thought I understood that part of the ARPA dollars were going to fund Perrette and Grow Benzie and to participate in this digital equity piece.
Merit has been able to do this without any dollars moving
you.
hands.
Just for clarification though, Merit at their expense has provided a paid professional to help guide the group.
Correct.
Okay. And at some later date, we have agreed to fund the cost of getting information out regarding digital equity. But I don't think that we've been asked for any of those funds yet.
And as it's being proposed today, there's a great deal of funding out there. And Purette's recommendation and the group's recommendation is to not actually spend county dollars, but rather try to get all this grant funding to do this work.
Another question? If I could, first, for the benefit of the community, Benzie County was one of 3 counties that were identified. I've been in this initiative from the beginning. Tell us, how did we qualify? Out of 83 counties, why were we selected?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually a research scientist. In 2002, I pulled together a think tank of other research scientists national government officials and then local practitioners and people from municipalities together. Because as soon as they identified that these Digital Equity Act funds were coming, for those of us who are around during the BTOP era, during the Obama administration, we know that a lot of those funds were perhaps not deployed in the most effective way possible. This being our entire mission and, you know, what Merit is seeking to do, we wanted to be able to prevent that from happening. So we knew that there was going to be a lot of money that was coming into the state of Michigan. We knew that there were going to be a lot of communities that really needed the funds. And I wanted to understand how could we facilitate and help communities figure out what their needs were and then deploy programs in a way that was going to make the best use of those dollars for people and also make the biggest impact on education and on the workforce. So we published a scientific paper and peer reviewed that. And then from that, that's where the scientific community helped us to better understand how communities do these economic development and education processes. And we developed the process that we did within the county. In order to qualify for a larger grant from the USDA to be able to deploy this at a much larger scale, we had to seek some other communities. So what we did is we looked to the USDA to say, what are the types of communities that are going to be the most eligible, the people that you're going to be looking towards. And then also I wanted to work in communities where I had a really good relationship. Because as anybody on the task force can identify, we co-learned together. We figured this out together. Merit didn't come in and say, okay, we know exactly what to do and we know what you need. We said, we don't know what you need, but we would love to learn how to figure that out together. So we happen to have a really great relationship, Merit does, with Benzie County. I personally have a very good relationship with Katie as well. So we thought that this would be a really good opportunity to figure out the process together. So we piloted this in 3 counties in Michigan, fully knowing that we're figuring all of this out as we go. And then from there, we were able to demonstrate the results of how involved the citizenship was and how effective the plans were. And that's what was successful in getting a grant for us to do this at a larger scale throughout the state.
And so for the benefit of the Board of Commissioners, they authorized a good deal of money to bring in a paid professional to help guide us through this. Did that contribute at all to your decision that we had made those kind of commitments and we had a paid professional that was helping us?
I actually was not aware of that when we started.
Oh, okay. All right.
Mitch is the paid professional.
Mitch Shapiro.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I knew that Mitch was working on it, but I didn't know that he was guiding he was not on the digital equity piece. He was specifically on the infrastructure piece.
Understood. Okay. And you commented about, in one of your slides, you talked about affordability and access. We know that we can control a certain amount of access by encouraging people to either do open lines or whatever the case may be. But how do we control the affordability piece of it?
So this is not a popular answer, but I can tell you how to get there. So in all of the communities in Michigan who have had some success at looking at affordability, the most important and unfortunate thing is to have the understanding that it's a marathon and not a sprint. So there's a really good case study in the Eastern Upper Peninsula. And one of the things that they did is they leveraged federal E-rate funding, which is part of the Universal Service Fund. And over the course of 10 years, they leveraged a lot of those funds to actually build high-speed connections between all the community anchor institutions, essentially building middle mile infrastructure within the community, which would reduce the cost of entry, the cost of build out for other smaller ISPs. That's one strategy. I would be happy if you wanted to talk a little bit more in depth. I've got quite a lot of notes, and we just actually recently published a pretty large case study on it, but there are strategies like that you can do over time, leveraging funds to basically reduce the price of infrastructure to come in. Some communities have done, I know that in Livingston County, they have been working on, they have an E911 ring, and then they're working to try to find some private organizations to use their trunk line that they've built out within their community as part of their middle mile infrastructure too. So there are strategies to reduce the cost of entry.
Okay. And this might be, that conversation may be better placed started with our EDC. And I do sit on the EDC as well as Commissioner Cunningham. So maybe that's a good place to bring it up.
But it sounds like it does require the open access model that we've we've implemented.
I was gonna
Yeah.
point that out. That's what Cherry Capital's doing.
Right.
Yeah, which was a bit of a sacrifice on their part, I might add. But, and Tom, if you would, I see you regularly remotely come into our meetings, but just for the benefit of us, looks like you have other committee volunteers here. Could you introduce them for us?
Well, over there. Come right over here. Come on up. Come on up. I'll let them give.
Sure, but I really value volunteers and want to make sure we recognize them as we.
Sure. So Thomas, my name is Jackie Ledke Borzan and I'm with Grow Benzie. So just as a clarification, I'm an employee at Grow Benzie, but I was working with Grow Benzie specifically to help organize this task force and kind of work with Merit and kind of be the bridge between, the outside technical expertise and connecting with the overall community.
My name is John Willow, and I'm with the Community Broadband Action Network. We're a national membership organization supporting broadband expansion and concern all over the country. We have about 190 members, including Benzie County. So thank you very much. Mitch Shapiro brought us in several months ago as the merit process was maturing and coming into its recommendation phase. Our specialty is doing the work to help operationalize things. And we are very experienced in doing that for broadband in particular. So that is the time that we've been contributing.
Thank you.
And just one last plug, if I could. I think it's really critical for us. Perrette went through the objectives, but this whole idea getting out of the gate on what are we putting in Benzie? How and what progress are we making? The idea that we've got funding from RDOF, we got some Robin funding, and now we've got BEAD funding. And I would ask you as county commissioners to help us keep the eye on the ball to make sure that we get what we're trying to get done here in the Internet for All. It is just, it gets confusing at times as who's got what and who's got a handcuff on, because we've got RDOF funding, we can't do BEAD funding over here, and it's just something that we've got to stay focused on, because otherwise, when at the end of the game in 3, 4, 5 years, and we look over our shoulder, do we have Internet for All is the real key that we're looking for the check mark. And it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So help us stay focused.
And Tom, I understand that part of what your group is doing with this digital equity helps us qualify even further for some of these monies.
Yes, it will. It will. The point though is right now on the front end during this, it's really when My High comes out with who's got what, will help us identify where we go. And going forward, the whole digital equity, this could explode favorably throughout the county. We have all kinds of opportunity, and we just have to be smart on how we go about our digital equity. It's just, people, how run wild with technology. See a teenager with a phone, right? Well, this is kind of like turning everyone loose with technology, and we just have to be smart about it. Yeah.
So I think that what Tom has done a wonderful job. And I think I want to just clarify that we don't have BEAD funding yet. So part of this BEAD process is we've challenged the maps. And I have to say that between Mitch's work, Tom and myself, I mean, it's amazing how much you can learn in 6 to 8 months when you attend so many meetings and really get into the intricacies. But Benzie County has really made a name for itself, especially in the rural community, is leading the state in this BEAD challenge and being present and being available and asking questions and asking a lot of questions and the right questions. But it doesn't mean that we will automatically get BEAD funding. This is only so that they can approve the map, so it will open up which locations are eligible for BEAD funding. The county will still have to work with ISP providers to go after those funds. Those aren't, the BEAD funding in particular is not something that like an individual nonprofit can, or an individual person can go after. So that's a huge step. And then obviously there's the whole kind of digital opportunity and equity part. So once we can say we've gotten all these folks connected, even though teenagers know how to use technology, it doesn't mean they're doing it well, or they're doing it fully, or they're doing it right. So I think there's safely and, you know, cybersecurity, and there's just this whole other kind of area of digital connectivity that we hope that the county will continue to explore. We know that will take some amount of resources, and we know that some of those resources have already been allocated. And I will say that I'm not going to get into it here, but you know, we've kind of in the background have been mulling over like, hey, what do we want these next steps to be? And we want to provide a little bit more clarity. CBAN and Grow Benzie in particular, I think that we can offer some kind of more nuanced suggestions at a local level. But really, it will be up to the community, the you know, the commissioners and other local folks to say, hey, we want your feedback. What do you want these priorities to be? Because out of all those recommendations, we know we can't do every single one of those. And we certainly can't do every single one of those all at once. But we might be able to do a good amount of them over the course of 3, 5, or 10 years. And so we hope that Benzie County will continue to focus on broadband to some degree. Something will be better than nothing. And I think that's kind of, you know, our charge to kind of you. Merit's provided some wonderful information, has helped kind of amplify the voice of the task force. And really, I think with being able to work with Katie and through y'all, we're really hoping that we can continue to have these conversations so that we will have some level of report like this. And obviously, Mitch and kind of through the EDC, there'll be some continued reporting about that BEAD and kind of that mapping process and the technicalities. But we're really hoping that this will continue. But we know that that will rely heavily on your shoulders. But we do hope that going after funding, that it won't cost taxpayers money in the long run. It will be, let's see what we can get and take advantage of this once in a generation funding in the next couple of years and see what we can get and see where that takes us.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak one more time too, if I might. I was a little nervous because I didn't know I was going to be speaking, so I didn't prepare a stump speech about CBAN. But I just wanted to let you all know that I live in Interlaken, one road over from Benzie on the GT side. But I am the chair of the board of the Community Broadband Action Network, and I just happen to lead the digital equity practice. And I've been involved with Grow Benzie previously through the Benzie Bee Guild and other work that I've done there. And I am. So I just wanted to let you know that I am of here, from here. I know what happens here, and I'm not just coming in from outside. And I wanted to just make sure everybody understood that, because I know y'all don't know me. So the other thing I wanted to let you know is that CBAN was started in 2018 by myself and 2 other partners. We all grew up in rural Iowa. Rural Iowa is similar to Benzie County in that the whole state was a redheaded stepchild. It got passed over and flown over and driven through and confused with Ohio and Idaho my whole life. But in 2018, when we formed, we knew we had a huge problem with rural broadband. We all came from small towns. We all came from places that did get left behind. So we started the CBAN, the Community Broadband Action Network, so that we could help our local communities have access to high-speed broadband for economic development, to attract business and industry, to shore up and solidify schools and education, for hospital systems, for their own use, and also for access to medicine and health for the citizens. We didn't think any help was coming. So we just got in and rolled up our sleeves between the skill sets of the 3 of us to help people figure out what they could do and how to get it done. And I want to just emphasize that, because mostly we don't work with federal funding outside of infrastructure, because we know that the other work that we do is, or at least it's always been our understanding, that the other work that we do is considered nice to have, but not really as fundable. So we have always had a practice in our supportive services like digital equity services to look to ourselves, look to the community, look to our providers. And we have a once in a generation funding opportunity now, and we intend to leverage that for everything that it's worth. But we also fully understand that, you know, you need to be the change you want to see, and it's going to come from within the community. And that's what we hope to support and facilitate. So thanks for that
Thank you.
opportunity to introduce myself.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yep, appreciate it. Let's take a short break.
communication.
You're unmuted.
Thank you. We're back in session. We'll move to item D under new business. Consider approving the repaving proposal of the sheriff's office public parking lot and the approach to the pole barn.
The Buildings and Grounds Committee has talked about this recently. So the sheriff's office parking lot in that employee area up the hill has kind of been on the wish list, capital list, what have you, since I've been here. So it just hasn't been done. It's not made the cut per se. It was included on the ARPA list when you guys approved the rough draft list of what we'd spend those ARPA dollars on for internal purposes. And so the sheriff was able to obtain 2 proposals from Molon and Team Elmers to do those parking areas. It did come in a little higher than what we anticipated. The old number that we were basing our list off from, it was closer to that, but as you know, the world has went crazy and things are very expensive. So it is a little bit more. To relieve some of that cost, Grand Traverse Construction will be funding a small portion of it because the SkyTrack kind of messed up the entry into the employee parking lot. So they're going to cover a little bit of that. And then we've also spoke internally and we had set aside about $100,000 for the window replacement, but we don't believe that that's going to be necessary anytime soon. And so the thought process there is to take the additional funding from that earmark to cover the parking areas. And the Buildings and Grounds did recommend going forward.
Thank you.
And you just, I have to acknowledge, I didn't read the proposals in detail, okay? But when we did the government center, we found out after the fact that there were certain things that weren't included in the original proposal. Like, for instance, on the edging, we had to bring in dirt. And I think there was some striping that we hadn't anticipated. Has that all been included in these bids?
So I don't know the past very well. We kind of did talk about that at the Buildings and Grounds. Some of that overages was because of the widening of the parking lot, is my understanding back then. As far as the dirt goes, the edging of the parking lot, based on the proposals that were presented and the communication with Team Elmers, which is who the recommended contractor is, they would take care of, that piece of it. The striping piece of it, I would defer to the sheriff on that, if, regarding that conversation.
It's in
That's
Elmer.
okay, good. I forgot. So it should be the whole kit and caboodle of what you're seeing.
Okay, all right.
Okay, well, we're on the striping project. Because of what we did out here, make it wider. 10 foot is not enough. This parking lot is too tight.
I do fit my semi.
People would have big trucks.
Hey,
My Civic fits.
It's, if you're driving a small car, yeah, no big deal, but just make it this right there.
my understanding is a striping would be a standard width.
I'm just saying, I got dinged right off the get-go from the last one, so.
My car's been hit twice.
Yeah, I just think it's more.
You guys ever
appropriate.
think it
That was
was
on
on
purpose,
purpose, not
Bob.
the
Yeah.
parking
Oh, you did
spaces?
that, right?
I get it with
You
my.
think that's gonna make
Right.
any difference if it's wider so you can open the door? That's my concern. I would just consider it.
But is there a standard?
That's what it is.
Well, Mitch tried to tell me the standard was 10 feet.
The minimum, I think
And
that's like
that's
a
the
minimum
minimum.
standard.
And
Yeah.
I think they were trying to get more spots in there than were necessary.
I know all over northern Michigan, they're shrinking the spaces in effort to traffic calm and, all the things that go into a redevelopment ready community and all the things. But
The paint chips on my door, I don't know if it calms me down.
I don't know if it calms me down either.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion that the Board of Commissioners accepts the proposal from Team Elmers in the amount of $119,220 with funds available from ARPA Capital Fund.
Mark, you will support.
There's a motion and support. Is there further discussion?
Is there a reason why we're taking the higher of the bids?
So that was discussed at length as well. And one of the major factors that pushed us towards Team Elmers is that they're proposing to do the work in a fellow swoop, whereas Molon was phasing the project. We also have prior history with Elmers and we know that they do, a fantabulous job. But the biggest push for that was the timing. They're going to just come here and get it done versus Molon was going to do it in phases, which extended the project.
No, this wasn't part of it, but I'm gonna ask. We're gonna replace those concrete steps.
So you want me to address that? It's on our list and we have talked about it at the buildings and grounds level now, I don't know, at least a half a dozen times. We've have an RFP published that's been published for quite some time. We did finally get some numbers in. The numbers were much higher than we anticipated. We also have received recommendation from some of the contractors that did come out and walk around the campus regarding the concrete. And the recommendation has been given to us that we really need a design engineering study before we're going about with all this concrete work. Because a lot of this work, needs to be ADA accessible and the slopes and all those things need to be at a certain level. And so it was recommended that we actually have a full engineering survey study done with drawn plans so that everything is up to snuff when it comes to concrete. But just as a number, I mean, millions of dollars to do concrete around the campus.
I'm just wondering if we should be looking at doing Trex deck, something like that, put a wooden types, not wood, but something
Trex,
permanent.
yeah.
Something like that. I mean,
I'd have-
anyway, I just thought.
Yeah,
it's
I'd
been
have
driving
to-
me nuts every time I walk up.
We'd have to look into that. I don't know whether or not if there's a liability issue in that, Trex is typically a residential product. I don't think
Mhm.
it's necessarily a commercial product. And there could be some liability there. I'd have to look into. Concrete is, typically the standard. I don't know if Trex would meet a standard or not.
So why don't we
Yeah.
take care of the motion? It's on the
Okay,
table.
yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You.
It's motion and support. No further discussion. Roll call, please. Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Knapp,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item E, consider approving an agreement with World Triathlon Corporation for the Ironman event.
So
That
Iron,
moves that the Board of Commissioners approves the agreement to provide EMS services, emergency manager oversight services, extra road patrol services, additional central dispatch services during the Ironman. Michigan race is prepared by the county legal counsel and authorizes the chair to sign.
Worsakki seconds.
Motion and support. Further discussion. Gary,
No, I think we're good.
roll call, please.
Oh, wait a minute. You
Oh.
throw my
what?
for the trail into this bit or?
Oh, you want your wages in there?
Roll call.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Knapp,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Item F, consider approving reclassification for administration's executive assistant.
Is this the standard reclassification process we've been doing all along?
Yes, and I would like to note that while this is the position and not the person, I would recommend recusing yourself, Bob.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion. The Board of Commissioners approve the wage increase for the above listed position with the county administrator. Complete the budget adjustment of $249.48 from contingency to the corresponding wage line, with the wage increase to take effect on June 9th, 2024, with no step increases to incur until 24-25 fiscal year on the employee's anniversary.
Support.
Motion and support. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Knapp,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Stay.
Recuse.
sorry. Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
motion carried.
Great, thank
while
you.
Thank you.
you're Here,
Yeah.
there's an opportunity I could sit down with you. I went over that. Whatever you guys were using,
Mhm.
I'd like to.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, great.
Thanks, Jackie. Item G, purchase of additional EMD licenses.
So the Board of Commissioners authorized opioid settlement funding to move towards EMD for our central dispatch and all of our neighboring agencies within the county. At that time, when that was approved, we approved just a couple of licenses. Now that we've applied for additional grant funding and got that grant funding, we want to buy the remaining licenses for the project. The licenses that were purchased at first was enough to get us going and to get the process going. And to do EMD in Benzie County, but now we're purchasing the additional licenses so that all the staff who's working has those available licenses at their fingertip. And as I said, we did receive grant funding back.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the budget amendment in the amount of $7,000, recognizing revenues and expenditures related to the emergency medical dispatching, and authorizes the purchase of additional licenses by approving the quote from Priority Dispatch in the amount of $5,084 with funds available in the Central Dispatch Fund.
I second.
Motion and support, further discussion? Roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item H, consider budget amendment for Central Dispatch.
As you're aware, every year we are allotted a certain dollar amount from Lansing for training purposes specific to our emergency communications specialists. Those folks have completed training, and so this money is specific to their wage for the training. And so what we're looking to do here is move that money out of the training fund and into their wage fund to reimburse their wages.
I'm going to move that the Board of Commissioners authorizes a budget amendment in the total amount of $5,529.74 from the Dispatch Training Fund to the Central Dispatch Fund, and further that an adjustment be approved to move funding into the Central Dispatch wage line to reimburse wage costs associated with training. Support.
Motion and support, further discussion? Roll call, please.
Janai.
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Janai.
Yes.
Markey.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item I, consider approving marine safety grant agreement.
Janai moves that the Board of Commissioners accepts the Marine Grant Award in the amount of $10,100 and authorizes the chair to sign 2024 Marine Safety Program federal funding grant agreement with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, and approves the necessary budget amendments for payment and reimbursement related to the grant.
Sauer seconds.
Motion and support, further discussion? Roll call, please.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Janai.
Yes.
Markey.
Yes.
Janai.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We're into committee appointments. Appointment for Betsy Valley Trail Management Committee.
Can I explain a little
Yes,
something? ahead of
please.
time, maybe? This position, there's clipper positions on the board because of the Bigelow agreement. There's a position from the Friends, which is this one. And there's positions from the villages, Thompsonville, Alberta. Probably we're gonna expand that. But we always go with the recommendations, so I really don't. Where Jim is just replacing Avis, because Avis resigned. The recommendation comes from the Friends, and we usually just honor their recommendation, so I don't see any reason that we need to bring them in and interview them, and we've never done it in the past. I think we did it for the at-large position, and that's been about it, so.
Right. So the way that the makeup of the committee is that there's certain representatives from certain other groups, and then you have your own representatives that you interview. And so typically what you're doing in this situation is you're concurring with that outside agency's recommendation, just as we did with the Village of Beulah not too long ago.
That I'll make the recommendation that the motion that the Board of Commissioners accept Avis Wildy's resignation and appoints Jim Gribble to fill the remainder of the term on the Betsy Valley Trail Management Council as recommended by the Friends of the Betsy Valley Trail, with his term expiring December 31, 2025.
Brenda. There's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Janai.
Yes.
Markey.
Yes.
Janai.
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We'll move on to commissioner reports. I had more meetings scheduled and that got canceled than I attended, but on the 8th of May, Buildings and Grounds and Agenda Review We discussed some of the stuff that we voted on today primarily, and you'll see that we talked about it again on the 21st. Lindsay County Veterans Affairs, 2 weeks ago. Primarily, prior planning for the Memorial Day celebration. Of course, we had our BOC meeting on the 14th. The Village of Lake Ann contracted with me to sweep the village streets, which I've been doing for the last 6 to 8 years. Rent a commercial street sweeper, and it takes me 3/4 of a day to do that, and I get paid a little bit to do it, so. 21st. A week ago today, buildings and grounds again, we discussed the sheriff's parking lot, agenda review behind that to solidify what we're doing today. I'd answer any questions. And I will comment on the Memorial Day celebration. Yesterday, I had heard earlier in the morning that Manistee canceled theirs and that Traverse City had canceled theirs. And I was asked 2 or 3 times what we were going to do. I said, we're going to have a celebration. We need to think about our active duty men and women as well as memorializing the rest. And they didn't have a day off yesterday. So I didn't think we should take the day off either. I thought it was a great presentation. I invited Sam McClellan, former tribal chief, Grand Traverse Band, Ottawa Chippewa Indians, and he did about a 15 to 20-minute presentation. 3rd Battery Cannon Squad was there and shot 3 times, which is kind of loud. And American Legion Honor Guard from Frankfurt was there for a 21 gun salute. So all in all, I think it was a great presentation. I enjoy seeing all the people. We had a full house, even though it was drizzly that morning. So thank you for everybody that attended. It's very important for us to see those many caring people, and I love the heck out of it. So thank you all. Commissioner Jeanette.
No report.
Thank you. Commissioner Cunningham.
I submitted a written report. If there are any questions about that, I will entertain that.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Nye?
Sure, I have a short report. I attended the Village of Beulah meeting. The president shared that she had been notified by Jack Bergman's office that Beulah had made the shortlist for communities considered for an infrastructure appropriation. That's really big news, and we are on standby waiting to see what that's gonna mean. The board spent a lot of time discussing, it was a spirited debate about their event policy, which they ended up approving. This is, people who can speak on village lands, how long, what requires a permit. There was a lot of nuances involved with it. Also approved Barb Skirtle, was approved for her free tennis clinics again this summer. I also attended the Water Smart Land Use Committee, which was a part of the Benzie Watershed Coalition spring meeting. A lot of entities were there discussing the health of area lakes. There is a Rotary funded systems mapping discussion, which will address what are the factors that prevent us from and enable us in prioritizing water in all decisions, which will be reviewed on June 4th at 10 a.m. The location to be announced. This is our conservation community is received this funding and is heading up that discussion. And then we've covered the building and grounds meeting, and I also attended the Veterans Memorial Day ceremony. It was well attended, well done, and actually quite emotional. Good job.
It was. Thank you very much. Questions for Rhonda? Commissioner Markey?
Attended the Friends of Point Betsy Lighthouse board meeting. They were mostly ready to open for the season. They were scheduled to open on the 18th, and I believe they did so.
Good.
They're working on improving their business solution. By that, I mean, they ran into issues when they lost internet. They weren't able to process things.
Where's those internet people at?
Yeah. So they are I think they have a solution identified, and it's probably in place already, since that. And we already heard about, they had a big discussion about the erosion and that permit process. We already talked about that at our last board meeting. I attended the dispatch advisory board meeting.
And they did approve the emergency medical dispatch policy. And we also approved a default template for the surrounding counties and the United States Coast Guard to be able to use our talk groups on the radio. And we put together a subcommittee to look into encryption. Buildings and grounds and agenda review.
Questions for Tim?
And just one question, it's not directly related to anything you said, but you've been helping us spearhead the performance evaluation for the administrator. Can you tell us where we're at on that process?
We got the questionnaire. I got feedback from you. I have not gotten any feedback from Bob on that yet. Once we get that, then we can start that process.
Anybody else? Evan?
I attended, I did the accounts payable. It was the first time I got to do that, and thanks to Rose, I don't know where she went, for helping me because I struggle a little with the computer sometimes. So she helped me through that process.
Don't ask me to help you anymore.
Yeah, okay. Benzie Bus, I attended that meeting. They pretty much covered a lot of everything there, but they do have a new chairman on that board is Ann Noah. It's no longer John Morse. And I was at Memorial Day service that Bob and the veterans team put on, and it was great. It was rainy, and I was one of the people that asked Bob, "Are you still having this today?" Because it was raining pretty hard for a while there, but I'm glad you guys did, and it was a great day as usual. Thank you.
I was a little frustrated on. We got no coverage from any news media, Record Patriot, nothing.
Well,
And
Colin's been doing anything, you're probably lucky.
well, that's beside the point. It's a
Yeah,
Benzie County event and he represents us and
Somebody should.
I thought somebody would at least take the time. Grand Traverse County canceled theirs and Manistee canceled theirs, so we were the only ones left. If news people had anything to do, was going to any of them, they could have came to ours, and I had that in there the evening before I sent a text there and was like, hey, if you guys are available, come on down. No.
You had notified him?
Yeah. Yep. Gary, you're next.
Is what it is. I went to Gilmore Township. They're having concerns with people living in campers and how to address that, and I guess that's getting to be a problem everywhere. So, I'm not sure.
In Traverse City.
Weldon Township, Carrie Aldrich was appointed as the supervisor to finish out Ron Heitzman's term, and she plans to run for the position. I think she was on the list. Anyway, I think it was a good choice. Carrie used to be the clerk. She's well acquainted with what's going on there. Real conscientious young lady, so pretty happy with that. They also discussed the Crystal Commons project. All the airport issues have been addressed. Moved the buildings back a little bit, and they cut all the flight path concerns, topped the trees and took care of that, so they're good, and now we're waiting to pursue a PUD and tax abatement is what they haven't really got formal permission to go ahead and build it yet. So anyway, that's where they're at. Village of Alberta, normal business, Parks and Rec, you guys covered most of that. Health Department, this is probably gonna get a couple people fired up. We are moving forward with the health officer. And
Is that replacing him?
no, we're gonna get it. We want our own health officer.
That's right. Good.
Yeah. But we are starting the process. It's probably gonna be about 6 months. Some of the reasons, increased number of employees. We have a higher fund balance, increased revenue from reimbursements, and increased permit income. So financially, we're stable. And to help this along, one of the things was environmental health. The remodel was all paid for by a public health infrastructure grant, so there was no local funds used for that. That was good. And the last thing was the health board is not asking for any increase in local appropriations, which I believe this is the third year in a row. Not saying it won't happen in the future, things change, but I gotta give them credit for working hard to do that. That's where we are. Road Commission, the brining of the roads are underway. Lake Township asked for a speed study, leave on Dead Street. They say, be careful what you ask for. In the end, the MTF funding has increased by about 5% over the last few years, so it's not a reduction. No, she didn't want to say that, but Benzie Bus does benefit from MTF road fund. So anyway, they are advertising for a new finance director. And they're starting the process now. I believe that they're looking at 6 months to possibly fill that position. Joe is willing to work part-time to help, whatever it takes, but they're looking for somebody in that position. And they also discussed the trucks because they can't get trucks this year because of, I think I mentioned it before. So they're gonna take some of that money, not all of it, and put more into the general fund. And they are gonna buy a couple other items, so it'll look like they've got a bigger general fund, but these trucks are coming in the future, hopefully. Get all three of them next year. And so yes, don't get too crazy when you see their general fund. It's increased by 700,000, something like that, I believe. So that was good. The Maples, by last meeting, they're at 77, which is one short of being full, and they had 12 new residents, and they're all Benzie County residents, so that's always good. June 25th was the target, not the target date, the last contract employee will be gone at the Maples. That was a goal that the board set. And you got to give management a atta girl for doing such a good job following through with that. That was a heck of an expense. They had some problems with Hearst Mechanical, and they had some issues that weren't addressed. They even talked Big Boss. So it looks like the board gave her permission to enter into a possible contract with West Shore to do all the maintenance and stuff on this equipment. So I think that's good. It's local. They can do the same thing that Hearst is doing. For some reason they weren't following through. So I don't want to badmouth anybody, but they are what they are. And we had issues with the molding on the windows, which was addressed when in the past. And the bid to fix the molding, and they are having some leakage problems in some of them, which got to get it taken care of. Nothing major yet. $212,000. Do you believe they're going to come here and ask? But I won't go any farther. Let's just say their fund balance is not don't have the paper, but I think they can swing it. But anyway, we will cross that bridge when it gets here. So that's all I've got.
Questions, Gary?
Yeah, 2-3 things, Gary, if I could. Did you have something? Regarding the health department, I think it's important to expand a little bit on the fact that we've got some retirements that we're looking at, that bringing somebody in that's dedicated just to 2 counties will help oversee some of that transition. You didn't speak to that at all.
I didn't speak to that. I didn't want to push out there, but yeah, we're looking at one of them retiring early next year. Not sure about the other. But we would only have one. Eric would still be there he's young, he can't go anywhere. But Michelle could possibly go. Dodie. And, but they have worked on filling their position, and hopefully this will free up some stuff, and everything's based on grants. A lot of it, a lot of what they get funded by is grants. So you would have the health officer would be able to dedicate a lot of his time to that, or her time, whoever we get. Well, I think in the long run, it's gonna be good financially. We had a couple of good years here, I guess, is what you'd call it. So money's there. And I think the time is appropriate because we've had such an increase in employee. Some of it I know is probably from COVID. It's like trying to run this organization without an administrator. You only get that person 1 day a week. He's available on the phone. Well, there's only so much you can do on the phone. A lot better if you have a person in the position there. So, I'm very comfortable with where we're going.
Just wanted you to expand on that.
Yeah.
If you
That
would,
helped.
with respect to the Maples, the only thing that I want to remind people of is that several years ago, we sat in this room with the Maples board. We talked to them about the goals that we asked them to consider as owners of the Maples. And this is what you shared with us a moment ago, is continued movement towards those goals. I probably have said this too much, but I'm very impressed with the board there and how they're moving that organization forward. So I just wanted to put that out there, and just for my own benefit. Lake Township, you said a road study on Deadstream?
I don't know which road it was.
Okay.
Speed study, excuse me.
Speed study, okay. That's all right. I'll check into it myself then.
Yeah, because they had brought it up to the road commission, and I think they were hopeful that the road commission could just change the speed limit signs. That doesn't work that way. So
Well, there has been a change in legislation, and townships now can make their own decisions. They don't have to go to the state police for that anymore. So that's why some of this is being revisited.
But that also forces the liability on the township, which is one of the reasons that the road commission doesn't change speed limit signs or stops. But we'll see where it goes.
Sure.
I did reach out to Dodie regarding, you knew I would. And so she answered a lot of the questions that I had regarding the health officer. I think it's gonna be really important that you guys have deliverables from this new person that's gonna be hopefully alleviating some of the pressure from the retirements. And I think that could make all the difference and warrant the change. I think if you just have somebody come over, without designating a new job scope, I mean, this person has to have.
We had a
designated-
list of
Yeah.
the requirements.
Yeah, that's great.
She probably mentioned it.
She did. She
And
did. She was
there's,
very
you know,
helpful.
Yeah, so I think we're on the right path. Things change. So, and also made the ceremony. I don't remember being in the military and they shut us down because it rained. Anyway, thank you, Bob.
My pleasure, Gary.
Kind of sent you out anyway.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I
Oh, that
forgot.
part, yeah.
Yeah.
It happens. County administrator report.
Just a few things for me. We're in the middle of budgeting right now, so we're going through that. So far, the departments I've met with, there hasn't been anything like, wild. So I think things are gonna go well there. This week will be the bulk of the rest of the budget meetings, and then we can really start putting together a draft budget. We are doing some evaluations and potential shifts of office responsibility of various departments here. I'm working to schedule a meeting right now with Central Dispatch and the Sheriff's Office and the courts. And so we're just kind of looking at, where things have been, where should they go? The Central Dispatch Department, they handle various things that maybe are outside of the scope of the surcharge. State of Michigan is cracking down on the surcharge and what you can use that money for. So that's kind of spurring some of this of maybe some shifts and responsibilities that might be coming forward. We're also working on the educational handouts for the upcoming election, so you'll see those coming out pretty soon. As you recall, in 2022, we did a little printout regarding the different millages and, you know, what the facts are. And so we're putting those together again to distribute into the community. We're also working on some grant management in our office. So between Rose and I, we're trying to manage all the different grants that we have out there, from the trail grants to some, well, mostly the trail grants, BRA grants and such. So we're working through that, and that's a constant. Seems like every week we're working on some grant, but it's going well. Opioid funding, we are scheduled to get about another $100,000 coming up over the next few months. So once that money's here, we can start talking about maybe how we want to spend that money. The process we're following is really the process that most counties are following. Once you get the money, then you spend it, versus committing and then maybe you don't get the money on time. Because a lot of these settlement agreements and the way the payments are made by the different distributors and such, it's very, we just don't know. I'll get an email randomly that says, you're getting money in 2 weeks. And so I send it to Kelly, you know? So once we get that money, we'll start talking about how we want to spend that money going forward. I'm also going to create a page on our website that's just kind of an informational page regarding the opioid funding and what we've spent the money on so far. Last week at my conference, we talked a lot about the opioid funding, and people were really excited about some of the things we've spent our money on. Some of the larger counties haven't even spent a penny of the money because they don't know how, because they have so much of it. And I'm like, well, we don't have that much. So it's a little easier to spend when you don't have millions of dollars sitting there. But also regarding opioid, on July 5th at 10 a.m., we're going to have a roundtable discussion in this room with the AG's office. And so I'm inviting all of you, as well as department heads and other elected officials, Chip Johnston, the school superintendents, because we're one of the fewer counties in Michigan that's actually put some of that money into the community. They want to hear from us. So they're very excited to hear that we're putting the money out into the community already, versus a lot of counties have still been sitting on the money.
What's the date on that?
July 5th at 10 a.m. I did not choose the day.
I'll be up here vacation.
She is. So I'm hoping that as many people as possible can come to that roundtable discussion, just to talk about the money and what we've spent it on and how we think it's impacting our community and such. I did hear from some of the school staff that the assembly kids are still talking about that assembly and like the, hey, remember when that guy was here kind of thing. So I think that was a very impactful way to spend the money, especially if kids are talking about it still. So typically kids stop talking about things 3 minutes before they're done. Like I said last week, I was at the MACO conference, which is the County Administrative Offices Conference. So I was at Crystal Mountain last week for a few days. We talked a lot. That conference is really more about networking than anything else, and talking about best practices and such. It's all county administrators only, no elected officials, no commissioners. It's just county administrators. And we really talk about, you know, how did you handle this and what are some of the best practices in your county? We talked about MERS, and everybody laughs, of course, the same way you all do. But one of the things a takeaway that I had from the conversations was that some of the larger counties, because they can, you know, afford it, they're actually making annual payments to MERS at the beginning of the year. So then you have more money in the pot that's being invested, and then eventually that helps your unfunded liability. Now, it's my understanding MERS doesn't like that approach, which made me smile more. So Kelly and I have spoke about that, and we're potentially for 2025, we'll look at doing an annual payment at the beginning of the year versus the monthly payments that we're doing now, because that's just one strategy to hopefully help our unfunded liability status. So that was a kind of an interesting takeaway that I had from there. And also it just happened to be that Pat McGow was there. And so I spoke to him about the bond stuff. And so him and I have connected. And so things will be coming forward on the whole bond council piece for the road commission. We are advertising for additional site attendance for our sites. I have received some phone calls from townships. The sites don't look great. They need to be improved. And so I know Jackie has an interview this afternoon with a gentleman. And so if you know anyone who'd like some part-time work for the summer, we're looking for folks to help us keep those sites picked up and clean and acceptable in their viewing. Just pass them our way. And then June 7th, next Friday, so not this coming, but next, we're going to have our employee potluck barbecue. So please stop by. We're going to do it up there where we always do it, there behind the sheriff's office in that new parking area. And so we'll be cooking out and, you know, having a little fun for a couple hours and just appreciating the staff from that avenue. So, and then the final thing, so broadband, I know we already talked a lot about broadband today, but expansion is still happening in great waves, which is great. Tim Malone has brought John Malcolm onto their team, and who's a Benzie County resident. So John is really, he's walking around the community and really just getting the word out there about, hey, internet's coming down this road and, you know, are you interested? And here's what it means. So that continues to happen. They're still continuing through inland down through 31, as well as that Frankfurt area. So those are kind of the major focuses right now for the broadband piece of it. As far as the fiber jetting to Frankfurt and the light up of Frankfurt, that through the Reach 3 MC, the unit there. So that's happening just around the corner, as Tim puts it. So very soon that fiber will actually be lit along the highway. So you've seen them, you know, digging and trenching and pushing through. It'll be lit here before long. So that's really exciting. And then they can really start doing that last mile into Crystal Lake Township and down into Frankfurt. So that's happening at as fast speed as they can.
Did the fiber to the tower reduce the proposed number of residents that will be served in that project, or does that number remain unchanged?
Say that again.
The fiber to the tower,
Correct.
the safety tower.
Yep.
Did that pull away residents that were originally going to be served from the refocus on that, or did
That's
that
above and
number
beyond.
stay the same?
Yeah, it's above and beyond. Yes.
Okay.
So we have our broadband project and we have our tower project. The tower project has a broadband element, and that broadband element is on top of our broadband project.
Thank you. I just
So it
needed
just
that
made it
for
a little bit
clarification.
bigger.
Okay.
And you're talking about those people off of 115?
Just wherever the service area map, I know there was an original map and I'm not sure if that's up on their site yet. Tim kept alluding to it was coming in the future. For people to reference if they will be, who haven't received postcards yet. Are they being considered for service? How do you know that? Or was that service area reduced to, and I'm being told no, that it remains the same?
It remains, yeah. So the original, with the original broadband project, you know, that was that set of folks. And then with this tower project and that expansion down there, that expanded that middle mile. So it speeds up all those folks a bit faster, because now it's just the last mile that has to be provided. So that was on top of our original broadband project. So that's really huge.
Thank you.
Anything else?
A couple of other quick things. Regarding the opioid funding, I'm glad you touched on that. In the items that I'm reading, quite frankly, this board should take a lot of pride in the timeliness and the events that we're putting these out to. As I looked at it compared to the state and what was happening in other places, I think that we're right on with what we're hitting. And we want to, as Bob heard me say earlier, we need to celebrate these kind of things, let the community know that we're hitting them.
Yeah, I mean, it's why you're getting a lot of state attention on various levels, is because you guys really are making decisions and impacting the community at a really great way. And not that other counties aren't doing their due diligence and doing things, but you as a board are really making impactful decisions that are, you know, moving up the process compared to other areas. And that's why you're getting this state attention from the AG's office wanting to be here. We have senators here all the time calling us to talk to us. You know, they're the broadband space. We're leading that charge for rural America. And so you guys should be very proud about the decisions that you're making.
I've taken note of your comments when you're interviewed for the paper on different subjects. I'm gonna tell you, I think you're doing a great job representing us. I'm
Even though
left
he
with the
spells my
imp-
name wrong.
What's that?
Even though he spells my name wrong.
Well, aside from that, it's obvious that you're taking some thought in what you're saying. And I think it's in how we're represented by you in those interviews is critical. It represents us.
Thank you.
This board, so appreciate it.
Yeah.
And last item, in the past, the Board of Commissioners has helped pay for like these picnics and the Christmas dinner. Are you needing any money from us for this?
Yeah, whoever wants to donate is welcome to give me money. I just usually go get it. And then whatever you guys give me, I just put towards the pot.
Okay,
of what I buy. So I'll go buy the meat and the forks and all those sorts of things. So whatever you guys would like to give, you're welcome to, but
because otherwise who would be paying for it?
myself.
I thought so. Okay.
And then one thing that I actually forgot, so I was reached out to by the ICMA, which is the International City County Management Association. And they would like to feature myself and Benzie County, in their national newslight. So every year the ICMA features about a dozen communities around the country, well, actually around the world, because it's international. They feature about a dozen communities around the world. And it's a 5-minute blip about our community and the way we're doing things and how we're leading. And so I have a meeting with this gentleman next Friday or this Friday to talk about what that means and what that would look like if we want to go forward with that. But this 5-minute segment would be shown at like the national conferences. We would have all rights to it and we could give it to the news people to show it if we wanted to. But I was reached out to while I was at the conference last week by how do you say his name? Callan.
It gets worse.
Yeah, Callan, on whether or not I'd like to be featured.
What's the name of that organization again?
The International City County Management Association, so the ICMA.
Before asking about the acronym.
Yeah, so there's a lot of acronyms. Obviously, we're part of the Michigan Association of Counties, which is MAC. I'm part of MACO, which is the Administrative Officers Association. I'm also part of the ICMA, which is the International City County Management Association. So that's for county administrators and city managers alike that are part of this conference. It's actually the largest organization of city county managers.
And Katie, on the opioid money, we have a process for that and you'll have that on the website. Because I know that was concerned last time. I've got a few questions on, I didn't know about it. How do I, but it's there or it will be.
Yeah, so when we went through that process, we published that RFP for 60 days at least, maybe 90 days. And so that was on our homepage of our website, and then obviously all the public meetings. And so we did that. What I'm going to do is because it's kind of lost in the news section now.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is create an actual page under administration, and I'll link it under the commissioners as well. And it'll be a dedicated page to the opioid dollars. Now, you as a board, we can follow the same process. We can do it a little differently. It'll really be up to you on how we spend that next $100,000. If we think that RFP process worked well, we can follow that process again. We could go another approach with bringing in a lot of stakeholders and doing a more like stakeholder, initiated idea. Last time we brought in all the staff and the elected officials and central wellness and the health department, but maybe we could take a more grassroots effort of calling local therapists and seeing if they want to be involved, or hopefully we can reignite the gentleman who wanted to involve Fair State University, because that didn't really go anywhere. And so it'll really be up to this body as to how we process that next $100,000. Maybe it's the same process, maybe it's a little different. I don't know. But once we receive the money, then I'm comfortable going forward.
No, okay. I just wanted a game planned on that because I'm sure the rest of us do with the meetings we go to.
Yeah.
You share that information, give them the link.
Yep.
But we're waiting for money and then.
Yeah,
okay,
we've gotten
so
the
we
notice that
will
the
have
money's
that.
coming.
Okay.
So we should be getting money soon.
Okay, because I don't want I want good communication on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I may be oversimplifying this, but for my purposes, when I think about the use of those funds, first, I'd like to see the majority of it go to programming rather than overhead costs.
Correct.
And that it touches as many people in the community as it can,
Yes,
instead of just a singular group.
I agree.
And I think the fair balance between prevention and response. I think that that's a nice equilibrium to try and hit both sides of it. We're
Yeah.
responding to the opioid and we're also taking preventative steps. And I think we
Preventative
did
is
that with the
huge.
first round.
Preventative is huge.
Yeah, so the MAC is, they've been kind of sending out surveys to the administrators and asking where counties are, thinking of spending things or have spent things and such. And where they've noticed the least amount of spending is the research, and they are surprised by that. And but like I said, we want to get this into communities' hands. People don't want to fund research. There's enough organizations out there and universities who are funding research. the local governments don't necessarily want to fund the research, but that's where they're seeing a lot less money being spent. The preventative is the biggest piece that people are spending on. There's a few counties I've heard are spending it on young women and women who are pregnant, I guess. Some programming for folks like that. A lot of soft handoff programs. So like the MAP program, which we're funding towards that as well. So that's kind of where the bulk of the money that has been spent is being spent.
Got a couple for you, real quick ones. You invite for the opioid thing and you invite folks in like Chip and those guys to say this is where the money went. Same thing with the courts, and we give
Yes.
some money for that. Okay, excellent.
Yep. So on my invite list is the 7 of you, all of our elected officials and department leaders, as well as their chief deputies, and then as well as the court staff. So Kim Nowak and Wally were on there, as well as Karen Feliciak, who's with Circuit Court. So they're all on that list to be invited as well to come to that
I
round
was
table.
thinking specifically the drug court.
Yep. So the drug
So-
court is through the circuit. And so chain of command and proper protocol is to notify the court
Sure, that's
administrator. So that's what I did.
I just would like them. The other thing was the MERS. I'm a little confused. You're gonna pay the entire year up front?
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking at doing?
That's what we're looking at potentially doing. We don't know if we will do it. So when MERS, and you guys will hopefully see the actuarial soon, I haven't gotten it yet. But in the actuarial, you'll actually see our estimated payments for the next couple of years. So they tell us how much we got to pay, which is nice for budgeting. And so typically how most counties do it and how we've always done it is we take that amount of money they're telling us we're going to owe for that fiscal year, we divide it by the 12 and we pay monthly. But some of the larger counties and, others who are trying to do it, they take that dollar amount and just pay it annually for the year. So then you're investing that larger sum of money at the beginning of the year. So then you have a better rate of return on that funding. So we know how much we owe MERS, even though the actuarials change every year and our percentage changes every year, our amount that is owed for that year is in last year's actuarial.
This is what, couple of them that I have seen. Actually, last year was a loss.
Right.
Oh, your unfunded liability.
Probably.
Well, but on an averaging or a smoothing, you're gonna get the benefit. Typically, the only reason why you don't make one annual payment is cash flow.
Correct.
I mean, think about your own investment accounts. If you were putting away $10 a week, if you could put that, $520 aside, that's earning for you for the full year.
Correct.
And if we can, from a cash flow perspective, without putting us at risk for other funding needs, I think it's got to be considered.
Yeah. And so Kelly and I have started those conversations and we'll evaluate if we're able to and if the timing's right and things like that. But I thought it was very interesting that counties are moving towards that. And from Monroe County, he said, oh, and MERS doesn't like it.
But one of the things you guys are going to want to consider, if you don't mind me saying, is that look at the counties that are contributing on an annual basis.
Right.
And forget about the dollar amount. Try to determine over a 5-year period, what was their growth. So let's say ours might have been, just as a number, 3%, but they may have gotten 5 or 6% because they put it in all at one time.
Right.
That gives us a comparison. To Gary's point, I mean, if you put it in, you lose it all.
Right.
And that happened over the last 5 years, well, maybe not, maybe we'd be better off to keep it in our own investments.
Right. So we'll be evaluating. We have a few months to decide on what we want to do in that space, but we'll be talking about it specifically. I'm hopeful to have the actuarial soon. Tony will come and present to you when we do have it. Usually we have it about now, the end of May, first part of June. So I'm surprised we don't have it just yet. When I do add up the annual statements though, the annual statements, we come out ahead in the quarterly. So I get quarterly statements as to how much is invested, how much we've paid out, how much we've gained, and we're coming out ahead based on those quarterly statements. So it'll be interesting to see the actuarial considering the last 4 quarters we came out ahead.
But isn't this like?
But the smoothing
You're
thing
back.
screws everything up.
Yeah. Isn't this a year or so back?
Well, I
The
have all those
information?
quarters though.
Oh, okay.
So I have all those quarters, and if you add them up, we've come out ahead, but then that smoothing factor gets put in there, and that's where that'll mess us up. So if there was no smoothing in the last 4 quarters, we would come out ahead. But smoothing will change that.
Well, Tony can explain it.
He'll try.
Right.
You can try to, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you.
I don't have anything else unless there's any more.
All righty.
questions.
Correspondence? Last public input, anybody? I just want to make a quick statement. Yesterday, we talked about a Marine veteran who lost his life recently to brain cancer. He's 38 years old from the Lake Ann area. Last year, a group of folks got together and had the first LA 5K. And the funds raised went to his family, his wife and kids. So this year, the family has decided, now that he's passed, the family decided any funds raised, they're going to donate to Benzie County Veterans Affairs. We're putting that in a separate fund
Mhm.
to be used only for key situations. It's not the general finances. It's not, it's a separate fund
Right.
only for designated support to veterans in need. So we'll come up with the legalities of it. Matt will give us a hand putting that all together on, you know, what the stipulations are. It can only be accessed by the Veterans Affairs Committee. I think it's a great thing, and that's forever and ever and ever. Until the 5K gets postponed or put off, they're gonna be the fundraiser for one of the fundraisers for Veterans Affairs. Therein, we have a good chance we can lower what we assess right now as far as the military, but we'll see how that goes. That's all I got. June 20th, you wanna run? Good for you.
You're running it? Good for you.
Yep, starts out and finishes in downtown Lake Ann. Can't miss it.
I'll cheer.
I want to run towards the hospital.
They do that for a little
If
bit.
I walk the
Okay?
race, I won't walk the next week.
This is our athlete right here. I'll tell you. I
She
know,
is.
she's quite capable. But
Last-
on the other hand, you better have the ambulance behind me.
I couldn't walk
They're
for
there.
a week after the last 5K.
Last year, they hoped for 100 people. They had over 300.
Oh.
17 minutes, I think, was the fastest time. And I was in front of this guy on my side by side. He was averaging 14 miles an hour.
Holy.
I mean, the kid was running.
There is a sign up deadline to guarantee yourself a shirt. I don't remember if you remember that date. So if anyone's interested, if it's after this date, you're not guaranteed a shirt. So for those that may be interested, hurry up. If you want a shirt.
I will.
Don't
get-
have to run it, you can walk it too.
Exactly. Well, you walk on the flats or walk on the,
Can I use your 4x4?
Right.
absolutely.
I'll drive you.
Oh,
So, anybody else, any last minute?
That moves for adjournment.
Thank you, thank you. Motion and support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,